We're back. A little bit later than expected. We gave Bobby time to enjoy his dinner. Grin Grappler, the September edition here at the start of October. We'll be back eventually on track, I promise. Asuka is our topic. I'm not going to ignore the elephant in the room any longer. Alex, you've come prepared tonight. How are you, pal?
I'm good. It's me, Austin. That's what I was waiting to do that whole time. Good. Always a pleasure. Glad to be here. Glad to talk about Asuka, Kana, one of my modern favorites. Just glad to be back with the boys. How y'all doing?
Very good. I always appreciate you ask. I'm not used to that around here from the...
Also to update from the last time, the Cincinnati Bengals are back on track, so all is good in my life right now.
My God. Football talk? I don't know how I feel about that. May have undone the goodwill there of asking how I was. That's unfortunate. Okay. By the way, how long is that list of modern favorites? I'm interested. Is that like a...
I was honestly thinking about it when when I was prepping for this. I was like, Asuka may be like my newest favorite wrestler, if that makes any sense. Like the most recent wrestler that's like a favorite of mine. So it's not terribly long. Her, Walter, Bud Matt, I guess. The Holy Trinity.
I love that even us, like the Bud Matt loyalists have like begun to waver. Like, I don't know, man, I guess.
It's one day it will come where we discuss the Bud Matt saga, but Asuka's definitely someone who has figured out how to stand out in modern wrestling, especially like modern WWE Americanized television wrestling. So very excited to discuss this.
Absolutely, me too. The Oracle of Wrestling, a new setup. You're on with a new setup, new lighting, looking great. How are you tonight, pal?
Fantastic. I have finally set up my podcasting station here in the guest
station
bedroom, which is now my podcast room. I've got the Roku on with the Roku background.
Wow.
Looking at the city with the giant squid coming out of the water and such. And shortly I'll be turning something on. Maybe an old NFL game from 2006 to watch on in the background.
Not NXT.
Well, I mean, come on. I'd much rather watch football from 16 years ago.
Fair.
But I'm doing well. Excited to talk about Asuka, who is definitely one of the better
wrestlers.
In general of the last, I don't know, five or 6 years.
Just one of the better wrestlers. Never just don't elaborate. Yeah.
One of the few good wrestlers since 1997. So,
hell of a sports entertainer.
Oh, right?
A great performer. All of the terms, whichever your preferred is, she's very good at it. Bobby Two Shoes, you were here a minute ago. We were talking about the World Wrestling Federation. You're back again to about one of their biggest superstars, to quote Alex for a moment ago. You excited, pal?
I am. All these matches were a lot of fun. It's good to be back here doing another show. Had some dinner in between, so it was fun. And yeah.
You didn't get a haircut in between?
No, I did not. That's going to be Thursday. So
I want anyone that didn't watch the Fed did watch this. I wanted them to know like the timeline of the haircut. That's all. I was giving you a chance. It was a lob, Okay. Let's proceed into our regularly scheduled programming here. This is when I was preparing for this and was just putting my kind of notes together in the format and such. It was striking to me how different this felt to any other episode we'd done. Even though tonight's format is exactly the same, this feels very, very different, right? Like it feels like we've been in a particular lane for most of this. Tonight is going to be a little bit different, and I think that's a good thing. So, firstly, Bob, I'll stick with you here. Are you happy with the first results of our switch up here with the format? Because before we would, let our great Grinners vote, you kind of threw your toys out the pram a little bit. You said, I want the last deciding pick. You picked Asuka. Are you happy with how this has worked out?
Yeah, I am actually. I had 2 matches that I'd never seen before, and then the other 4 that I watched live but have kind of forgotten about because the most recent one was 2.5 years ago, and a lot's happened since then. But yeah, it was cool to kind of go back and see everything and be like, oh yeah, I kind of remember watching this, but also, now I have 5 additional years of context or whatever. You can kind of tell the story a little bit better, kind of see what happened after this, maybe some things they could have done differently. It was a lot of fun.
Couple.
Yeah, this was from the before times, right? Like you watch that February 2020 Raw, and you're like, oh yeah, I remember this. This was before everything happened. That's good call. I'm on with you. Oracle, we've walked some familiar paths in our time together on this platform. World Championship Wrestling, the enforcer Arn Anderson is saying we have discussed many a time. That was definitely an expectation we would end up here. Are you happy with how it worked? I think it was for the best that we went a different direction. What do you think, Oracle?
I agree. I think I think it's important to try and watch the 10 or 12 good wrestlers of the last 25 years. There's a select few of them, but if we find them, it's worth giving them a shot too. I agree.
Yeah. I want to do one about Carl Anderson. I agree we're on the same page. Alex, this is right up your alley. I feel this is your kind of ball game. What we got tonight. Are you glad we went in this direction? I'm sure you are, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think both you and myself, Joe, there might be some blood pressure spikes as we get into the later portion of this. But despite what some may joke about on Twitter or in my DMs, definitely not confirmed shoot or all. I'm not this big like Joshi, like purist or historian or watch JWP or Ice Ribbon or any of that shit. So I was not familiar with Kana when she showed up as Asuka in the World Wrestling Federation. But since then, of course, I've done my due diligence to do a bit of research. Same thing with like when I discovered Io Shirai and Kairi Sane, because obviously when
Sky, Alex, Sky. I'm sorry, people won't know. Carry on.
Okay, I apologize. We need a video package introducing her for anyone to understand.
Yeah.
So, but just her story's fascinating. The whole idea of wrestling, she didn't grow up wanting to be a wrestler. She just saw the Great Muta one time. Was like, that guy looks cool. Maybe I could do that. And also just how endlessly entertaining she is, like off TV. As anyone knows, I'm a big Golden Age Simpsons fan, and she is constantly making Simpsons references on her Instagram and Twitter accounts. So she's definitely endeared herself to me. But as far as like the bell to bell of what we're covering here, y'all are gonna have to rein me in because this is such an interesting time period to cover. There was the blessed year of 2017 that we'll get into. The what we didn't realize we had for a very short window with NXT, and then there's the transfer and the handling of Asuka once she got moved up to the main roster, and kind of the fallout and the what's happened since. But also, this is going to be our first trip to the Korakuen Hall. So,
yes,
Bob, I hope you got your passport ready. And I hope you've got your visa permit, because we're ready to work tonight. All right, we're doing limb work, we're doing psychology, we're doing bridges in a ring that looks like it's made of concrete. We're here to stay tonight. All right.
Bob's more of a kind of shoulder tackle, lariat kind of guy, right, Bob? You're not really.
He's the gallows to your Anderson.
That is. I'm comfortable with that. I'm actually quite happy with it, Bob. I don't know where you kind of. How do you feel about that? It was a little bit personal.
I meant that in a good way, a very good way.
You can mean it how you want, but Bob is going to have to take it a certain way. And
yeah,
Bob,
I mean, it's not inaccurate, I don't think. So I can't be too upset about it.
It's not inaccurate. Can you imagine being as nice a guy as Bob is? Just that's fair enough. Anyway, let's move on. All right, Bob,
you got a good big boot and a good choke bomb, my man. That's all you need to make money in this business.
Bravo.
There you go.
On Saturday night, I was lucky to see the big LG in person. The crowd gave him some great Festus chants, which he sold as you would expect him to sell, with the classic hand on ears dynamic. He tagged in, he dropped 3 elbows, tagged out, did not come back in the match. I've never been more proud to see the big man out there doing his thing. What a pro. What a pro. All right, Bobby, I'll stay with you here. Alex, he kind of, he's been on this show before, I think. He went ahead there and kind of laid out his fandom when it comes to Asuka. What's yours, Bob? I assume you met the wrestler at the same time Alex did in terms of coming over to WWE, but kind of like map out your personal fandom.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, she had one of the face in the crowd appearance things, and from there, I kind of started doing some research on her, and I'm like, oh, this is a big deal. It's going to be kind of cool to see her, and Yeah, I didn't watch NXT TV every week. I'd kind of just binge them leading up to the takeover, so I didn't see like the kind of TV match part of the streak or whatever. But yeah, every takeover, she'd come out and she'd deliver, and just kind of was as good as advertised. And then, as I started kind of watching the TV more, yeah, just good stuff every week. And really glad we added the Nikki Cross match because that was one of the best NXT TV matches, I think. So, that one was a high point. But yeah, it's kind of only been 6 years or so, and this was the first that I've really seen a lot of her Japan stuff was these two matches, and kind of like I always get out of these, I want to watch more now, so it's a success.
That's one thing that stood out when I was like looking at these matches and what we should do. It's like she got called up 5 years ago. Like 5 years on the main roster is like a hellacious run. That's like like back in the day, there's like Hall of Famers that didn't do 5 years at one go in the fit. Like she's been there for a long time now, man, just on the main roster. So that stood out to me when we were kind of piecing this timeline together.
That sounds insane. Just because
it does.
Anything before 2020 seems like 10 years ago. You know what I mean? So when you put it in the perspective of like 5 years doesn't sound that long, but it also is very long.
It's one of those things too, where because of the way she was used, we'll get into this more later, but a lot of it is bled together, right? Like when we watch the ladder match, it's like that timeline feels so separate from some other stuff because it's been a weird run for a range of reasons. A lot of people have weird runs in the last few years. It is what it is. Oracle, your personal fandom of Asuka. When would you consider yourself a fan? When did you go back and look at some of the archives, perhaps, so on and so forth?
I wasn't really in tune or like watching Modern Joshi and stuff back when she debuted in NXT. I'd heard of her. I think I'd seen some clips. I'd known that she was like a really like violent, like would like kick hard and like shit that would pop me. So even though I hadn't seen her, it felt like a big deal, when she got signed to NXT and Regal screamed her name or whatever, and like she came out and had like a good feud with Emma and Dana Brooke, and I was like, okay, that's impressive.
Yeah.
And I saw her live at they did like, what was it? I think it was like a set of tapings in Orlando Rumble weekend of 2016. And I saw her live. That's when it's like when Bob's buddy Austin debuted, and
Steve,
the small guy, and she was in a tag match with. I think she was in a tag match with like her and Bailey versus like Nia and somebody else. But I just remember when she came out, like her presence was like, holy shit! Like she feels like feels awesome.
Yeah.
It's like it felt like a huge deal when she came out. And really from there, I became like a really big fan. I mean, obviously she was a good worker and really, I mean, honestly, a great worker.
Yeah.
And I was a big fan of the Bailey matches and her 2017 run. Whether or not we can argue all day about how she probably should have dropped the belt.
We'll argue all day. Alex and I can have a fight later.
Like that run in 2017 was incredible. Like matches were great. Just like, and I really liked how she like tweaked her character from like clearly a babyface into like this like bullying sort of.
People forget that. Yeah.
Like she wasn't even a heel, but she was like a kind of a tweener, I guess.
So that match you saw in Florida, was that at Full Sail on Rumble weekend?
No, it was not. It was when they taped at the arena, it was at some building that they taped at. It wasn't Full Sail. It definitely wasn't Full Sail. It was a bigger building.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just trying to find it.
Can't remember the name of it. It's probably on Cage Match if you look it up. But
yeah, I thought it was this Asuka and Bailey versus Eva and Nia, but that's Full Sail, 27th of January 2016. Yeah, I know, right? What a heel team. The real world
No.
tag league is in full effect there, brothers.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't know. We'll figure it out. But
it was great, man. Like that was just it was great seeing her live, and she's had her ups or downs, her ups and downs booking wise on the main roster. But I mean, she's great every time, whether or not it's just her like understanding how to do the goofy character work, which she's excellent at. Like just a few weeks back when she was like taking bumps with Lily, and she's like holding the fucking doll the entire time.
fucking incredible.
And, like taking bumps into the steel stairs and like literally clinging onto Lily the entire time as if she had to protect the doll. It was art. Just stuff like that she's just, I don't know. It just shows you she's a step above everybody else of just like knowing how to like, I don't know.
Just adapt, right? Like,
yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's just, I totally get why everyone has a soft spot and fond memories of her as a killer. And definitely that is like obviously peak usage. I do think it's been fun to see her. I mean, she clearly enjoys doing some of the goofy stuff on WWE
Oh, yeah,
TV.
absolutely.
It's like, maybe she shouldn't have done as much as she did at times.
Well,
but like
that's what I said too about like how she got into the business. She's not a fucking mark, so she's just there to have a good time.
Right, exactly. And to be fair to her, like when there were no fans in the building, she was the first person to realize there were a few people that realized how to do certain things to make people like interested in what they were watching. Asuka was like, "Oh, let me be completely ridiculous and goof off the whole fucking time."
You're right, yeah.
And then and you had her and you had Danielson, who was like, "Okay, let's just fucking work really close mat wrestling and like throw nasty strikes to get people interested in the matches." You know what I mean? Like,
God bless y'all for remembering anything from the Thunderdome era.
That's like the two things I remember.
Yeah, because they opened Mania, didn't they? The Bliss Cross Kabuki match opened Mania. Yeah.
And Kyrie had that like unbelievable Mania gear for that. I remember WrestleMania, but like
I remember the adrenaline rush of realizing that match was the opening, and then realizing JBL was on commentary and being like, maybe it's going to be okay, That was my moment. That was my moment when I realized we're going to get through it. We stayed together. We could do it, But God, what a moment. But yeah, personally, I wasn't a big fan until Edge on his podcast said he didn't think she was very good, and then I decided I would kind of get on board. I thought I was a good player. That was an incredible bit. I don't know if you guys remember that, but when she main evented on the main event, when she debuted on the main roster, like Edge and Christian used to review the pay-per-views, and Edge was like, "I don't really get it." I don't really understand it.
Was he doing a bit?
No, he's just a dumb fuck.
Well, Adam, I don't get you. How about that, brother?
But enough about next month's Grin Grappler.
Good luck finding 6 matches.
We're all going to say the same thing here. Is I'm up last, so it's going to be a familiar story. But I think Asuka's one of those wrestlers. As soon as you see her, you're going to be a fan. She's undeniable. Now she's one of the most unanimously beloved wrestlers in the whole world. Legitimately, like. No matter what product you're into and what promotion you see as your brand, whatever the fuck that means, you're going to be a fan of Asuka. That's just the way it is, right? You very rarely will see people be contrarians about her. She's that good. She's that special. And, like, it didn't take long. I will say we didn't do any of the matches here, and we'll get into them a little bit more later when we talk about, the era, that act, I guess. That Bayley program is incredible and does not get enough love. Those 2 takeover matches are exceptional. We didn't do them because we went with the other NXT matches because I think 2017 is like an incredible part of her career. But those Bayley matches are tremendous. So that was a moment where I really remember being all in as a fan. She's genuinely one of the like great wrestlers of this last couple of decades, last decade, whatever. So I think we're all on board. The one thing I will say is I haven't seen any of the pre-WWE stuff until doing this process. I had never seen it. I mean, we've all seen clips, right? Mm-hmm. I will say I've seen the famous match where Suzuki is, I think everyone's seen that in some form or fashion. But this was the first time recently that I'm watching like some of the bigger, the classics and the epic matches, and we'll get right into that here with Act 1. Now, folks, if you're a big fan of Asuka or Kana and you're an expert, I completely understand if you're watching this, like, why are they doing 2 acts in WWE? I get it. It just feels like the logical way to approach this for the way we treat this, like Act 1 is pre-WWE, Act 2 is NXT, Act 3 is the main roster. It just felt like the right way to do it. I'm aware that we missed a bunch of classics pre-WWE, but like for our kind of fandom, And for this audience, I think it's probably the right thing to do. So
it's justified too, because like, not to sound like a total nerd, but there is a very large difference between her NXT run and her
I agree.
WWE run.
And also, we need as many opportunities as possible, you and I, to talk about how this NXT thing was a thing we want back.
Yes.
we'll continue our campaign in the under the guise of the Grin Grappler. Listen, folks, we're starving out here, okay? Anyway, Act 1. Pre-WWE. Now, again, I'm no expert. I want to make it clear, and we've all just said we basically became fans through her WWE run. But it is worth noting that this match you're about to watch, she made her debut still 7 years before this. So I want to make it clear that, none of us are under the kind of idea that she's like a rookie here. I do think it's interesting that you see the presentation of Kana evolve within these two matches. The second match is much more the kind of famous imagery that you kind of see often posted, right? Like this is, before that, it's a little bit more kind of a blank slate. Let's get right into it. February 13th, 2011. This felt like a natural matchup. Not only is this her most highly rated match on the famed Cage Match, Bob and I's favorite website, but also Mako is an NXT UK superstar. I don't know if you've heard, guys. She's very popular here on the British Isles. Mako Satomura, Nitro legend. This match...
She's got to be the only person that's wrestled on Nitro and a TakeOver, right?
Liger.
Yeah.
Good call.
Yeah.
My man.
Liger. Other than that, though,
Brilliant.
I don't know who else it would be. Yeah, I'm not sure.
It was a big thing, like when she debuted, she was going to be the last person to like wrestle in WCW and WWE, like last person hadn't done both already.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
And more importantly than TakeOver, NXT UK TV, right?
It's true.
Very, very prestigious. Tonally, this match is such an incredible experience. We always hear that phrase of sports style presentation. It's become such a like nothing thing now. It's used for everything that's serious wrestling. But man, does this have that vibe, right? With the atmosphere the way it is and the strikes. This is quite the experience, Bob. I saw your tweet earlier. You had a hell of a time with this. This is quite the ride, isn't it?
Yeah, it's great, man. They start with the forearms that just look like they're hurting a bit, and then they go into the kicks, and that looks like they're kicking the shit out of each other. And, it slows down for a little bit, but it didn't impact my enjoyment of it. And, yeah, just a really strong match to start. I've seen both of them, obviously, but this is kind of a different time for both of them. It's 10 years ago, whatever. So, yeah, kind of cool to get that kind of baseline as the beginning here. I did kind of realize early on there's no give to that mat. So anytime anyone took a bump on it, I'm like, oh, that looks like it hurts real bad. And that kind of added to it too.
I think so. The striking here, you mentioned the kick exchanges. There's a few head kicks from Kana that Mako just eats clean in the face, like without any kind of, not a hand up, nothing, right? It was violent in that regard. The striking on display was spectacular. Alex, what did you make of our first match here?
Is that like the deal with the Japanese women's promotions? Is the ring just had to be concrete?
Yeah,
like
it was a rib.
That they just did it as a rib. The All Japan women's ring is without question like the hardest looking ring I've ever seen. But yeah, with this, I love early stage injury, like that being a story in the match, and that's like Kana eats a kick and like immediately takes a powder and is like her arm's fucked, and that happens like in the first minute of the match or something. I remember years ago at one of the Bolas, Tommy End wrestled Drew Gulak, and on the first lockup, they did this thing where Tommy inadvertently got poked in the eye, and like for the next while was like his vision was impaired. And I remember the PWG crowd just shit on it. Like they were like, what is this? This isn't what we look for. And like all the DVD reviews were like, this match felt so out of place. And that's like, when you watch something like this, it's like that does make it feel more of like a sports style presentation. But yeah, the Japanese crowd always adds to everything. This felt like you were watching like a tournament. Like, these people were like live for this event. I'm always a fan of limb work, so that made me happy. And then at one point, Mako just kills Asuka with a Death Valley driver. It's like one of the most impactful moves we get in this whole run here. And then we get the chicken wing finish. And I think I speak for all of us when I say this modern era of wrestling, it should be remembered that it was Asuka that brought back the chicken wing and no one else of any problematic nature.
Wow. That was, I can't believe the way you closed and open and close that commentary. That was
Took you around.
Yeah, it was.
But I mean that. Like, I want to remember Asuka with the chicken wing, and that's
No, I'm
what
with you.
Yeah.
I have to be honest. I am still slightly reeling from the Tommy N towel that you led with. Him misjudging something involving his own eyes is something that I've kind of become familiar with over the last years. So
I didn't even connect the two on that.
Yeah.
It's been an obsession of his forever. He's determined to get the eye angle over, brother. It's a good match, though.
Have you seen the Instagram selfies and stuff that he does?
No,
Brother.
does he? Oh, okay.
Like Zelina will post a picture with Malachi and he'll do he'll squint his eye because kayfabe and all that stuff, and then he'll post a video and be like,
What?
"Fuck Dave Meltzer."
Yeah, I'm not about that tribalism, guys. Come on, that's not me.
Don't need to quote Bob. We were talking about Malachi Black. All right, anyway. You mentioned the arm that the deal with the early injury. I love the way that within the match's story, Kana's response to that is I need to get something back. She obliterates Maiko's leg. Remember those low kicks she was trying to start, and they kind of do a role reversal deal with that, where then the referee's checking on her. That was fucking awesome. The idea she had to even it up. Because she was kind of fighting a way out of a hole there at the start of the match. That was tremendous. Love that.
We talked about this on the last one we did with these two, the Terry Funk one. The man, those Japanese wrestling promotions almost all have a different style of presentation. We talked about the cinematic nature of classic All Japan. Here it is very sports style, way up in the action, close up angles under the bottom rope, shit like that. Type of shit that would drive Kevin Dunn nuts, but when you watch this, it's always fascinating to see these different styles of presentation.
This isn't what the show's about, but I wish that was a thing in the States. There's no variety in terms of presentation. It's everyone shoots it the same way. It's kind of, they do less cuts, but they don't have their own flavor, really.
It's telling when you go back and rewatch fucking World Class or AWA from 30 or 40 years ago, and you're like, whoa. Let's do this again.
Exactly. If I said to you, describe AEW's production style, you'd be like, well, it's WWE, but they do less cuts, so therefore it is better. By default, it's better. But it's it's not, they haven't got their own flavor yet. It's a shame. Oracle, what do you think of our first match here, pal?
I was a huge fan of it. I don't know, man. I haven't seen something like this in a while, It's it ruled. I definitely noticed that Matt, Jesus, I don't know. Reminded me of those I don't know. It kind of looked like the center of a hardwood basketball court, or the high schools. They got the logo painted in the middle with blue. I was like, ow, that has to hurt. The strikes in this are just, it's incredible, man. They're just kicking the shit out of each other, and they're working submission holds, and it's oh, they're actually having an actual wrestling match. And it's real, it feels like you're actually watching something believable. Yeah, this was great. I just I noticed that when Mako had Kana in a hold. I was like, oh shit, Kana's working bare feet. I didn't even know she used to work barefoot. So I didn't notice that. But it's crazy. It's the one thing that kind of bummed me out watching the match was thinking back on I guess it was it an episode of Raw we were talking about, or was it the 6-woman tag at the show where Asuka's throwing her strikes, and it's the PC folks too long, man. She ain't throwing those things like she used to. Because she was playing soft with these people.
Didn't she hurt someone and then got kind of spooked by it?
You know what? You may be right. I don't know.
Yeah, no, she definitely.
That's a fair point. If that's the case, she strikes me as a very nice person. So
she definitely. I know that when, because I know her and Alexa they were the NXT title match for a while, And I think it was a thing then. I think she might have fucked Alexa's nose up or something. I think. I could be misremembering that. I think someone check that's the thing.
Yeah.
But I will say, watching this, it didn't appear to me. I think it was more when she made the move to the main roster. I think the schedule may have been a thing where, like, all involved kind of realized she should just line up a little bit because obviously they're fucking the schedule they did.
Oh my
She
god,
got
yeah.
caught up, like, you know, Friday through Monday. I could see that being it because the Alexa stuff was in NXT. Again, if I'm correct, if I'm not, folks, I apologize. But if you watch these like NXT matches, she's still kicking the shit out of people in those, and you can tell that she's lighter in the main roster matches. You can just see it, like visually, it's obvious. You know, she's still obviously her offense is still great. Right. If you compare like her and Charlotte hit each other hard, it still doesn't look quite the same as it even does when she's wrestling like Nikki, right? Like it's kind of it's really interesting. Yeah,
the main man, Big Gunther, he's established when he like main event offense and just every other show offense.
Absolutely. It is necessary, right? I mean, you have to kind of survive on that, especially for someone like her who is so charismatic. Honestly, when she's working a house show on a Saturday night, she doesn't really need to be hitting people hard because her shit's going to get over anyway, right? Like people love Asuka, so it does make sense in that regard. Man, this is one of those matches where genuinely, I think it's hard for any of us to like detail, point out specifics. You kind of just need to watch this and see how they execute what is a very simple match in terms of ideas.
Oh yeah,
it's the physicality, it's the intensity, the way they work them out when they get there, the way they throw the strikes is honestly like extraordinary. It's
very easy
awesome.
Watch. It's like 15 minutes or something.
Yeah, it flew by, right? Absolutely flew by. But it felt like every minute they were both trying to win, which is something that I increasingly appreciate. Yeah, honestly, it really is. But awesome match. Of course it is. Again, it didn't surprise me. Any of us were surprised this was fucking great, right? It was an obvious fit when I saw the rating it got and such. So yeah, it's not a match with like a whole bunch of ingredients to explore. It is so well executed. And there's such an awesome tone to it and vibe to it. I can't recommend that. Awesome match. To kick us off, let's move forward now. This is going to be an interesting conversation, I think. December 15th, 2013, Arisa Nakajima. I hope I didn't butcher the name there. This is much more the famous kind of presentation, right? Like visually, this is what I always think of when I think pre-WWE, Asuka, Kana. This is quite the ride. But I want to start with you so that none of our opinions, poison or flavor yours. What did you think of this? This was something, man. There was a lot going on here. What did you think?
Yeah, I liked the first bit when they go in the crowd and they're slamming each other's heads off the sign and stuff. I thought that part kind of ruled. And then, they get back in the ring and it's like, it's going. Then they start just headbutting the shit out of each other. And it got a little uncomfortable for a while there. I enjoyed it overall. I think it was a little too long for my liking, but overall, not a bad match. Just very, not really what I was expecting. The headbutts kind of got a little uncomfortable.
It's definitely not a bad match.
Yeah.
I think we can all agree it's far from bad. It's a fucking really good match. It's just a really interesting match in terms of what they go for. Like, Joe's comment here, I think, kind of now is where I was headed, which is like, it feels like multiple matches, like, pieced together. Mm-hmm. Which kind of rules, but is also like kind of dizzying to watch. Like they go from crowd brawling to like just kind of get on the mat and start working like a sports contest. Alex, what did you make of this? This was something, man.
Yeah, as I mentioned, we're in the Crokin Hall, so that's worth something. Really enjoyed the brawling part. Really enjoyed the intensity and screaming. Too many wrestlers are like fucking quiet these days, man. You're in there fighting, dude. Like Kingston is an example of obviously someone who emotes not only like physically but audibly as well, and that I feel that's missing. That Hogan, Austin, look at all the greats they had there. And so with these two going at it, hell for leather, like just like screaming at each other the whole time, it adds to the intensity of what you're watching. I enjoyed the brawl, the slams they pull off on each other, like just straight up like scoop slams and shit are just all impact. I do think it kind of lost its way, and they kind of shot for the moon in the sense of what they were going for. That armbar sequence, I'm sorry, I know it's wrestling, but I can't.
Yeah.
Watching someone sit in an armbar for 45 seconds is just we had grown past that in 2013, so it's not even a it was the time period type thing.
Yeah. I agree.
So there's that, but also I was not uncomfortable with the headbutts. I was yelling for more. I was going nuts when that was happening. So I love that exchange. And then when Nakajima's got like Kana on the ground and is just still going at it, I was like, fuck yes. And then it is a Japanese pro wrestling match, so of course it ends on a half Nelson suplex. I lost my mind for that because that's obviously, especially if you're from like the No Mercy, Revenge, Virtual Pro Wrestling era, I think the move most associated with Japanese wrestling at that time was the half Nelson suplex. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed Kana, her presentation here. The Mist, not illegal in Japan. The ref was just like, hey.
That was the opening spot, brother.
I know. Actually, I think the bell hadn't rang yet, but whatever the case.
Right.
I do, it's obviously something in the days of Stan Hansen and Brody that we've seen, but it doesn't really feel like there's that many walk and brawl wrestlers in Japan anymore, or at that time. So I always loved kind of the crowd. They were still kind of having fun, but some of them were like getting their bags, like, I don't know what's going to happen here. So I enjoyed it. A bit long for my take though.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's worth noting too. The way they did the kind of crowd brawl, it never felt like they were just doing it for the sake of doing it. It was actually felt wild and chaotic and violent. And when they were using the wall there, like it was physical, man. I appreciate that very much. I mean, the start of this match I thought was like it was epic. I think unfortunately they may have tried too hard to then move from that wild brawl into an actual like epic, like a kind of classic traditional match. I think that was a challenging transfer stylistically. Oracle, what did you make of this one?
I thought it was good. Definitely a little bit too long, and I definitely agree that they worked like a bunch of multiple different matches in one. So like they had like the crowd brawling and all that stuff, and then they just sort of settled into like mat wrestling, and then they started like doing like a battle arts shoot headbutts thing, and like it was all sort of like it was kind of a mess structurally.
Yeah.
Which I'm weird about structure, so I kind of I was like, eh. But in terms of like the work itself, it was really good. I'm with Alex. The violent headbutts popped me big. Yeah, sitting in an arm bar it's one thing to like, swing your legs around for half a minute or something and try to get out of it. But it's another thing to sit there for like, it's kind of like, all right, Yeah, this was good. Really, the only other thing that stood out to me was Kana's like, famous look. Because going back to the 2011 Mako match, like she just looks like, just a regular wrestler, and she's now got the full character stuff going on, and like of course it'll end up blending and sort of forming the Asuka character and the Kana character was obviously a lot more intense and stuff. That presentation was probably a lot different, but it was neat to see that transition from where she was in 2011 to where she was at the end of 2013. So
definitely,
but it was a good match. It was long, and the structure was kind of like, but like, I mean, the work was good. It wasn't.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was like, in a weird way, it was a wonderful encapsulation of the often irritating but absolutely accurate cliche about, less is more. I would love to see the exact match with the middle mat wrestling cut out, because I didn't think it fit the tone of the match at all. I think, finding a bridge from the brawl to the wild headbutts and strikes late would have been, that was the challenge. And I don't think the way they approached it worked necessarily, where it felt so disconnected. I can marry the other two. That middle act of the match I thought was kind of out of place, but is weird. I think you nailed it earlier, Alex, when you said they were going for something pretty spectacular here, right? So, but still, hell of a time, and just on physicality alone, I think it's very much worth a watch. Okay, now are we aware of, Alex? Do you have any others from this like pre-WWE portion of
No.
Asuka's career that jump off the page? You'd like to mention? None that stood out.
I'm not going to act like I have a vast knowledge of her. This isn't.
Well, you're an expert and a historian, so I just
Well, I was about to say I am, and when I do know about a subject, I'm going to make sure that you know that I know about it. But this particular one, no. I actually, we got Thanksgiving next month with Black Friday, and I always try to take advantage of IVP, the guy who produces all the Puro DVD sets and whatnot. So I know he has a few Kana Blu-ray sets, so might have to look into that. All right, to be followed up, to be continued. I'll come back with any Kana recommendations I come across.
My God, something to look forward to, folks. Always surprises when the contrarian's around. Bob, I know you have a detailed list in front of you. Feel free to read them off at your pace.
Yeah, I don't really have anything. I was looking through a cage match earlier today, and a lot of the higher ranked stuff sounds good, but I'd have to go through it.
Bro, I swear, the way that Bob leant in and started looking at something on I was convinced he actually had something in his pocket there. That would have been quite the deal. This isn't our expertise, folks. It is what it is. Oracle, I'm assuming you're in the same boat as us. You haven't got any other recommendations for Act 1?
I have absolutely no idea.
But we will have for the other acts because we are fed peeled bootlickers famously.
You got any Buddy Rose matches to recommend?
Oh, plenty.
Star rating estimate on Buddy versus Kana. What you got, Oracle?
Oh, I don't know, man. Buddy Rose could run those ropes, brother.
All right, let's proceed here to Act 2. Our next match will be June 28, 2017. So this kind of lay the groundwork a little bit. You mentioned it earlier, Oracle. She came in. The most memorable match of that first few months is the Emma match from London, which, as we've covered before I was there, that match is fucking awesome, and it's a match that Emma has dined on for 7 years now.
Was that the first women's match that ever opened a WWF live premium event?
I think well, maybe, yeah. Bob, what do you think?
Yeah, none are really jumping out before that. So,
you're saying Dawn Marie never opened any of them Ruthless Aggression shows? What you saying?
I don't think so. No.
Because I remember watching it in real time, being like, "Holy shit, they're opening!" Because to me, that always felt like a much bigger statement than the main event. Because you can build up and say, "This is why this is happening," but that match rules.
It's weird. That card is. Well, in fear of burying a show I attended, it's that may have been the least packed with the traditional banger, the NXT takeover. Is it because Bailey's match was Nia, the Revival had to wrestle Enzo and Cass.
Well, Bailey, that's the one where she did her BJJ training, right? Because she used a guillotine to finish. Okay.
Well, she's a shooter. And the other match was Apollo and Corbin. So. Process of elimination, brother.
I mean, we laugh now, but Enz and Cass were they were too cool. People, they're a punchline, but they were fucking over there for their moment in the sun. And I remember that match was hot with that crowd.
Yeah, no, it really was. The thing this is a different thing, but it was amazing to me this weekend seeing FTR in London, because when I saw the Revival in London, the crowd chanted, "Which one's Dash? Which one's Dawson?" That was the chant they got. That was a thing back then, man. People didn't really get that act until the American Alpha feud, right? And that's 4 months even after that. So, yeah, no, you're right. The Enzo and Cass, they were the attraction of that match. Obviously, sometimes we foul ourselves as people, but that was a thing at the time.
Last question about that show, because obviously it's not about Takeover London yet, but that was the one where. Is that the one where Sammy had the big comeback?
He worked. He closed the. I think he closed the show with the TV match. They taped it for TV. I think was what they did.
I just remember he had that fucking epic entrance because you Brits know how to have a good time. I remember.
Oh yeah. Well, we're famously great wrestling crowds, Alex. You know that,
That's right.
We're famous for it. Absolutely. Yeah. Punk rock wrestling. That's what we call it, Bob. Punk rock wrestling. Anyway. Enough about England, all right? So the match of Emma is great. The Bailey feud I mentioned earlier. Before we get into the matches we're covering here, I wanted to give you guys a chance to that because that program I think never gets enough love. Everyone thinks of Bailey's matches with Sasha, but those Asuka matches are tremendous. Bob, any memories of that program where Asuka takes the belt and we get that famous shot of the poor kid crying because Bailey submitted to? I mean, that is just great pro wrestling. Any memories of that stuff, Bob?
Yeah, I agree. Not a lot of people talk about it. Like the match they had in Dallas is incredible. And it just, I don't know what it is. If it's just, they're not either one's best opponent, I guess, at the time, and it just kind of gets lost to history like that or whatever. But yeah, I think it definitely should get another look because a lot of good stuff there.
I've always thought that was a great example of a comparison we've made before where, like, at its best, NXT was like a good version of mid-90s WWF. Like when, the Great Brett programs, it'd be like that flavor. It was like serious. Guys had time to go out there and just fucking wrestle. It was like the presentation was really striking at the time. Alex, any memories of that particular program before we get into our, matches scheduled here?
I think what was interesting at the time, because NXT obviously was not what it became even just within the next year. I think people didn't believe that they were going to fully commit with Asuka. I think they kind of just thought that she was just like another challenger or a cog in the wheel. And then when she wiped out Bailey, everyone was like, holy shit. Because I remember that's when she really started taking off. Famously, in my own mind, I chose the Ring of Honor show that night over NXT in Dallas.
So did I. Yeah, well.
There was something really good on that show. I'm completely blanking now. Oh, it was Roderick Strong versus Moose. That match is
yes, it was.
awesome.
It was great.
So anyway, but with that, so I think that's when people started like, oh, we're actually going with this young lady. And then she kind of just went on a tear and already called out here. I know this is about the Bailey thing, but specifically wrapping up her 2016, she had that really good match where they brought Nikki back just kind of on at the time, a one-off. It was still kind of the making of a monster. And really by the beginning of 2017 is when I think people started to see, hey, this killer's here type thing.
Look, folks, this show's about Asuka, but I ain't missing this opportunity. Do you know the kind of savage you gotta be to go out there and have a fucking banger with Moose when you're leaving the territory in like a month? You know the kind of animal you got. I just imagine sitting there and being like, I'm leaving this place in 2 months. I just did a job to Bobby Fish. Why don't I go and give Moose the best match of his life?
I do not doubt or question that it's Moose's best match ever. It's great. I'm remembering now more about that show. The opener was fucking Christopher Daniels versus Bobby Fish in a Geritol on a pole match.
That's right.
Tremendous stuff. Oracle, you may have been at the Ring of Honor show that night, but I'm sure you caught up. Any memories of Bailey versus Asuka, and then Asuka's 2016 as a whole? The Mickey match. I'm glad you brought it up because I'd forgotten that. That's very good.
Yeah, like those Bailey matches fucking ruled. I always remember the finish of the first Bailey match because it kind of came out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
And like the way that they filmed it was kind of like poor. I don't know. Like it was almost like they didn't capture, like it's weird. So like when she submitted, you didn't know that it happened. And I don't know. I guess the crowd was kind of. It was very weird, but like in some ways, it ended up working because people were like, "Holy shit!" Like Bailey's like, she lost.
Surreal, yeah.
And then they did this great like redemption angle over the summer where like Bailey was like defeated and like she finally beat. She got like all this monkey off her back, and she was like, "Okay, I'm gonna do it." And then she fucking lost. And like in some ways, the Brooklyn 2 match is even better.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah,
did Bailey go to the main
Mickey
roster
matches?
She went after the second match, yeah.
Okay.
Because I always remember it being like a moment where you realize NXT was different. I've talked about this before, but in July 2016, they did the brand split came back and they did call ups. She had 6 call ups from NXT, and obviously all of us dumb fucks were like, "Well, it's going to be Finn, Joe, Asuka," because like. If it was a shoot and you had 6 picks, of course you would pick. And they called up Apollo, Corbin, Carmella, Alexa, and Nia. Well, NXT kept Finn went up too, but NXT kept like Joe, Asuka, Bailey, and that was when you kind of realized, Triple H ain't he ain't rushing to lose his toys. I mean, she went up like the month after, but yeah, that was an interesting time. And Asuka stayed there for another 15 months.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of wild to look back on that time, right? It's a strange moment in time, but she went up soon.
But she had done like, I'm not crazy, right? She did like a one-off on the main roster.
She was Sasha's mystery partner in around the same time as the draft, like July 26th, which made it even funnier that she wasn't picked.
Yeah.
Okay.
She came out and won a match with Sasha, and they're like, "Yeah, we want Nia Jax on Raw." Owned. So yeah, I'm glad you put that up, actually, because before we get into this match, one of the things that makes 2017 such a great, like, impressive feat from Asuka's point of view is the division changed an awful lot. I mean, I just said those names in jest, but that was kind of the core of the division. In a month, you lost Bayley, Alexa, Carmella, and Nia, and that was what NXT's group had become after the Horsemen had left. So this run in 2017 is very much women that are coming in the promotion after her, and she is elevating them by sharing the ring with them. Speaking of such, I think that's the most obvious example. June 28, 2017, NXT TV, Nikki Cross, last one standing. Before we talk about the match, I'm sorry, I have to hijack the show again. I cannot tell you, fellas, how much I laughed when I realized this was Moro's first TV for NXT.
Mm-hmm.
I pumped my fist. I said, it felt like victory for me. Just how mad was you, Alex, when you heard Moro yelling and screaming about last woman standing business?
I mean, Joe, and some of the listeners may know about this. Like, we've known the problem that Morrow presents long before he got to the World Wrestling Federation. As MMA fans and whatnot, going back to the Pride Fighting days, Elite XC, Strikeforce, Bellator, even that's more recent. But they're like, and even the boxing fights he called the Canelo Mayweather fight, he called the McGregor Mayweather fight. This dude's called some high level prize fights, but he was annoying, but he was kind of restrained. He got to the fucking NXT and working for the WWE, and boy, like, it was just the cuffs. It was that Buddy Murphy tweet. The chains were off for Mauro Ranallo as he. And it's funny because we can compare it between this one and the next one we get into. Like, he's even more unhinged a year later. So it's he's a nice guy. I've met him. I did an interview with him one time. Very, very nice guy. He's fun to talk to, but I just do not like his commentary, and I feel it hurts the product that he's a part of.
Dude, that is so much worse that you've had like a positive interaction with him and you still just light him up.
His commentary, and he was nice to me when I met him, and he could be the greatest guy in the world, but I don't like your commentary, dog.
That's fair. People are a little mean, that's all, you know? Like, people like Bob, they get a little bit personal sometimes, you know what I mean?
Well, I will say, and this isn't the Morrow Hour, and I'm trying to keep it on track as much as I can. I will say, the problem is with his style, he opens himself up to higher levels of criticism because he commits so much to what he's doing, and he says these things that he thinks are going to sell T-shirts, and it's not, Bobby Heenan was genuinely funny, could just say something off the cuff, and the difference with that is it seemed genuine, whereas Morrow, when you listen to his commentary, you're like, he's been rehearsing this for 4 days in the mirror.
Yeah, well, I don't think anyone would argue that. I think that's absolutely fair. Enough about Bob's favourite announcer. Let's move on to this Nikki Cross match. We've teased it enough. I don't care how often pieces of shit like Bob dismiss NXT TV and talk about binging it, and it was boring, really. Nothing ever happened. This show fucking ruled. They would do like 3 squash matches. They would give you a 6-minute Oney Lorcan match in the middle. And then you would get your main event that got 15 to 20. God, it was a wonderful time. We'll circle back to that, Alex. But for now,
thank you.
Focusing on the match itself. Early on, I was watching it thinking, I remember this being a heated deal, and the crowd wasn't that loud initially. Because this is like a few years into Full Sail being like, they're kind of spoiled, right? They get loads of shit, this, whatever. So, like, the way they change this and remedy this is just Nikki basically just gives Asuka like a clean slate just to beat the shit out of her. Like, she's just like feeding her face, and she just lights her up. And I thought that was such a simple but absolutely perfect way to approach this match, because Nikki, as tough as she is, her offense isn't nearly as impressive as Asuka's, right? That just is what it is. I think she'd be the first to put her hand out and admit that. So this was absolutely the correct way to do this. I mean, the perfect example is the trash can spot where it's like Like that spot looks like shit in anyone else's hands. That thing looked horrific with Asuka throwing those kicks, didn't it? She was like, it was denting and making crazy noise. It's obviously they get more elaborate stuff as they go, but it really stood out to me revisiting it. How simple the match's strengths are, which is that basically Nikki just gives Asuka like a body to kick the shit out of for the most part. And the crowd gets into it as they go. Bob, what did you think of the last one standing match?
Yeah, I thought it ruled. Like I said, one of the better NXT TV matches of all time, I think. The trash can spot was great.
Bro, the week after this, Roddy wrestled Bob Roode in a 4 1/4 fucking world's title match. You don't think he dies?
Have you seen Drew McIntyre versus Oney Lorcan, Bob?
Oh.
Yes, I have. Oh. Yes.
Good one.
That was also great.
Grin Grappler, NXT TV.
But yeah, they got physical, but they kind of eased into it too, which you don't always see in these matches. Sometimes it's just kind of going for the home runs the entire time. But the power bomb onto the chairs was cool. Nikki doing that spinning neck breaker off I don't even know where Asuka's propped up, kind of on the barricade, I guess is what you call it. That was cool. And then the ending's incredible. I kind of forgot that it ended like that, but just what a spot to do for the ending.
And the thing that I thought was great about the ending was a little thing that elevates it. I love that the table that Nikki sets up is a decoy because it makes the spot itself seem so much more organic and crazy. Like Asuka doesn't care where that table, she's just going to pull her off and the announce table's there, right? Like rather than it feeling overly contrived, it allows it to feel chaotic and authentic. It was a really smart touch. The finish is, again, in fear of doing cliches. Everyone remembers that finish, well, I guess, but you don't, Bob. But those of us that like wrestling remember that finish because NXT TV didn't do that shit all the time, man. That was a big deal. Like them doing that in Full Sail was kind of crazy. Like a spot like that, they didn't do that often. So I always remembered it. Oracle, what did you make revisiting this brawl with Nikki?
Yeah, this is great, man. This is honestly one of the better last person standing, I guess you include both men and women's matches that they've done.
Such a hard match
15
to pull off.
years, right? I enjoyed the Becky Charlotte one. That one's overrated, but it's a good match.
Yeah.
And maybe I would think differently, but this is still better in my opinion. This match was just, I don't know. They did a really good job of having the brawling early, right? And then the way they paced the big spots and all the big spots delivered, and they did the crowd brawling and the big spots within, outside of the ring that you want to see. They were appropriately brutal. Everything fit within the characters of Asuka and Nikki Cross. That powerbomb spot, that delayed powerbomb on it's just, good fucking Lord, man. All those spots are all the big spots are crazy. There was a superplex on the chairs or something, right? Or something like that. Maybe not. The superplex was in the table, which was crazy.
It was in the middle of the ring, right? Didn't Nikki take one and then and then Nikki
right.
bounced back and she did a back suplex on the chairs. Remember that?
Yeah. And then there's a big suplex on the floor, right by the announce table. That was really hurty. Of course, the finish looked great, and I really liked the delayed bump. It made it look more brutal to me. Sometimes, I don't know, when they do the way that the table broke, they hit and then they bounced and they fell through. That to me, that always looks worse than just simply falling clean through. I don't know. This is a great match, great brawl. Really good feud ender because this ended their program. This was great stuff, man.
I think it's so impressive how many stunts there are and how much weaponry, but it always feels like it's playing out in front of you. A great moment is when Asuka throws a head kick and Nikki ducks and she kicks that light. It's it feels out of control, even though in reality it's a match constructed around 3 or 4 big time spots. It feels like it's organically kind of evolving and accelerating. It's so well produced and so well paced. It really does stand out on rewatch for sure. Alex, what did you make of it?
Yeah, and also I got my dates confused. I wrongly attributed the next match we're about to cover as happening the next year.
Right.
Of course, this was in the same year. If I didn't correct myself, I would have driven myself mad with obsession. But man, 2017 was a special time, and there were matches like this that felt like they mattered and meant something. As Oracle called out, it was the blow off for Nikki and Asuka, as they had been feuding pretty much the entire year up until that point. There's one of my all-time favorite Asuka character moments when the Iconics and Nikki Cross were both trying to get at her for the belt, and Asuka went into Regal's locker room and said, "Give them to me." And he said, "Which one?" And she goes, "All of them." And that was what like led into the four-way they had at the takeover that came up. And really good stuff. Rewatching it, couldn't believe Asuka didn't get knocked out on. I'm sorry, I don't know the name of the move, but Jimmy Rave called it gonorrhea. It's the move where you hook the back of the head and swing them around and slam them on the back of their head. Asuka hit so hard on that. So that was like the main spot that stuck out to me that I didn't remember, with the suplex, powerbomb on the chairs, the finish of it all. And man, Nikki was great. That thing she did where she like after the match where she's getting tended to medically and she's like just kind of like half laughing, half dying, and you know, Asuka having the hard time getting back up to her feet, and you felt like a real battle was at hand. I mean, it's a big, loud, stupid match, but it's it's not as big and loud and stupid as one of the other ones we'll talk about, but it's fun. And I remember this being kind of a turning point in the sense of, you know, Stephanie McMahon had invented women's wrestling about 2 years before this, and this was finally like when people were over the novelty of women doing the things guys do, like, oh, they can hit each other with chairs too, like that type of thing. And I think it was like, I remember it being accepted as one of the first matches that did this kind of stuff that wasn't just like, oh, this is crazy for a women's match. If that, you know, so I remember this kind of, it's not like my favorite match in the world. I don't think it's the best match Asuka had that year. I don't think it's the best NXT TV match or anything like that. But I remember it kind of served as like a turning point, and it's a fun one to go back and rewatch. And brother, we didn't know what we had with that weekly NXT show. That's what I was thinking watching this.
Well, we know how to blame. You know, these pieces of shit who would just binge it and fucking take advantage of it and skip through the Roderick Strong squash match of the week. You know,
okay, so
I don't need to watch the AOP squash match.
You absolutely do. One of the best matches of 2017 was a 90-second match with the Authors of Pain versus Birch and Lorcan. So
this is what I'm talking about. Real graps, folks. Real fucking graps. This whole shit we have now, you know. Well, it doesn't rate well on cage match. There's only one real match. Exactly. Wrestling television, you know.
Sorry, Joe. I got it. We have to when we get here. Like, remember this? Like weekly, we would get this show, and it wasn't on TV or anything like that. And it's still. The problem is as soon as like they started calling NXT the best kept secret, or no, that was our buddy Bud. They called it NXT is like it's a secret no more. They kept saying something like that, but that window in time we had, man, every Wednesday when this popped up and it was time to watch NXT, that was my weekly TV show, and
even at that point, it wasn't really a secret anymore. I remember like in 2013 when it was getting rave reviews from like the message board nerds, and like nobody was watching it.
Yeah, the first time I really took notice of NXT is when they ran fucking Phil Punk and Seth Rollins against the Kings of Wrestling. I was like, wait, what's going on down there?
That was like late 2012, right?
Yeah, and the secret was like, this is 2 years after the fact. Remember they ran that house show the night before WrestleMania or the Friday before WrestleMania in 2015? The matches from that exist on film on some of the Blu-ray sets, the unreleased matches. It was shot like a house show. It's just the one static hard cam, but some of the matches you can find from that. It was a wild time, man, and I think Asuka was like very important. It's important that we discuss this with her because she represented something so different than anything on WWE, even though they were pushing the hey, girls can play now too with like Sasha and Charlotte and all that, but it's still all those matches on the main roster were the fucking still the Tori Wilson hop, skip, and a jump, collar and elbow matches that like it just still felt like the same shit over and over again. And then you turn to NXT and there are the other things that you're like, oh, this is great. But then they have this colorful, non-English speaking, just killer of a women's champion. And that's another thing, man. Like Vince, as xenophobic as he is, gave up on the idea of the foreign menace a long time before this. So having this idea of someone who doesn't speak English and just runs through people and not in like a evil foreigner kind of way. I'm sorry to go down this rabbit hole, but it's like she was a big fucking deal for the people like us that were dedicating time to NXT, and it really, to us that drank the Kool-Aid and bought into it, she kind of epitomized what Triple H and the new movement was trying to do. So I think she was a very central character.
2017 is such an interesting time because you begin to see Triple H's influences. And I have given Triple H a lot of shit for his booking because I think he's not a particularly creative guy. But his taste is something that I think a lot of us fuck with because it kind of became like the actual alternative within the company, which is the dumbest thing ever. And we all remember how silly it sounds. But they did fucking war games, man. And like the perfect example is this match is great, by the way. Having Trent Seven been in that match is again Rod Strong, wild legend.
Trent Seven, hero. I've never seen someone fail more uphill than that guy in wrestling. God bless him.
That match is unbelievable. But that's another part of it where you saw like NXT taking its own shape. When the tag belts suddenly popped, do you remember when like the revival matches became like a thing and it was like, holy shit, this is like our version of like the fucking Brainbusters wrestling. Arn and Tully wrestling the belts back in the day. It was amazing.
Talking about Bayley and Asuka, the Brooklyn rematch, that was the same night as Conor McGregor Nate Diaz 2, which I was at. And so I didn't watch that takeover, but I remember getting on like Twitter and shit, like people were losing their minds over the DIY revival match because obviously they had been working together, but they hadn't had anything of that high profile. And that was like overnight, those four guys were made with that.
That's the other thing I miss about this time. TV was great. I loved they did actual house shows. I loved the little Easter eggs we'd get from those and the videos that would come from them. They did a title change on a house show. It was a special time. It was just fun, man. It was so cool.
I think to tie it back to Asuka one last time, the thing with this is like Nakamura, you just give that guy TV time, he's going to work. And he was obviously a fucking superstar already in Japan before he came over. And Asuka as Kana obviously was a big deal, but like I don't know if anyone could have foreseen that she would have connected in that environment as well as she did.
Absolutely. And in fear of going elsewhere again, I have to say this because we're never going to do a Grin Grappler Nikki Cross. Look, man, she wanted to play that character. God bless. I hope it allows her to sell 8x10s forever and ever. But there is something to Nikki. She's very unique asset and she can do a lot of things. She's very versatile. I hope whatever she does next is like, the kind of thing that can get her back on television because, man, like it's easy to forget how capable she is because this last couple of years has been, it's been something. So, what
are you talking about, man? She got to lose to Charlotte Flair at a stadium pay-per-view.
Well, she tried it. She tried her best.
It just makes me think of, speaking of Charlotte Flair, it makes me think of when the Asuka fun kind of was ruined.
We'll get to it.
Yeah.
And
let me get mad first, and then Alex is going to get mad after.
I know. Well, no, I'm talking about when she's knelt down and swore fealty to.
We know.
Charlotte Flair, and
I'm going to get mad first, and then Alex is going to get mad. All right.
Okay.
Asuka versus Ember Moon, Takeover Brooklyn. This, of course, is the sequel to an incredible match from Dallas, which, if you've never seen that one, because that one often gets forgotten, that's not a long match, and it is, like, spectacular. Asuka had kind of
Orlando?
Yes.
Correct.
Yes. 2016 was Dallas, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my bad. What else was on the other? Was that Shin and Bobby?
Yeah, the second one, which was
too.
good, but their first match was
First one, yeah.
incredible.
Yeah, it was.
See, this is
San
why.
Antonio.
This is we need more of this. You know, Bobby Roode, praise. We're talking about Roderick. We're having a great time tonight, folks. Anyway, back to this. I actually see these two work a house show in like June. Was a hell of a fucking time. Folks, here's the deal. I watched these matches late last week to be prepared. I've rewatched this match like 3 times since then. This is the most incredible display of offense in any women's match in the history of WWE. It is better than 99% of male matches in WWE. Every single thing in this match looks incredible. Every bump is explosive. The offense is spectacular. They have a super kick false finish that makes the whole place like explode. It is the art form that is professional wrestling, the king of sports. I'll get back to the finish later. I fucking love this match. The Oracle of Wrestling. What did you make of it?
Oh yeah, this match is great. Holds up. This rematch was like a big fucking deal at the time.
Yeah.
And I mean, the finish always kind of bummed me out because I don't even I'm not even like a huge Athena fan, you know. I mean, like, I think she's a very good wrestler, but like, I was like, it wasn't so much that like I've always been a firm believer of you lose when you leave a territory, but and then of course you get sent to feud with an even shittier version of Emma and get built up to win the Rumble, and we'll get to all that, and then it was all for naught anyways. But point being, it would have been much better if she would have just lost here, and we wouldn't have had to. I don't know, maybe not, but yeah. Well, I'm not. I don't feel as strongly as Alberto Garza up there does, but but yeah, the match is incredible. I mean, the match is absolutely tremendous. The drama down the stretch is incredible. The near fall and the eclipse made me fucking lose my fucking mind at the time. Still an incredible near fall. The super kick near fall, like you said. Asuka trying to find ways to cheat to win, like holding the tights on the crossbar. Just an exceptional match. Great finish, even with the controversy surrounding the decision, but like just an incredible match, just sensational. It's too bad, there's shouting going on in the commentary, but like the match was outstanding for sure.
OJ Garoche.
Bob, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm with Oracle. Incredible match. Crowd's just into it the whole time. And I got into it too. Really didn't get to take a ton of notes for this one because I was just focused on it. And the only really takeaway was that Ember should have won.
Well, here we go, folks. We're pretty united on this so far. Usually I have a lot of pushback when it comes to Ember Moon / Athena. Jack Crosby sends me a lot of spiteful messages. Confirmed she used to send me a lot of spiteful messages and then realized that she was now one of the 3 good workers in the AEW Women's Division. He has since backed off. But I feel supported here. I feel my friends have my back. But I sense that the name Contrarian is never going to be more fitting than it's about to be. Alex, what did you make of this?
Asuka's worst title match. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so something we need to address immediately as it pertains to Athena Ember Moon. I literally watched her first matches in wrestling back in 2007 with the Texas indie scene. There were weekly shows, so I was watching her monthly, if not weekly, at the beginning of her career. And same thing with fucking Keith Lee. Back then he was known as Kevin Payne. And so with them, even now watching them on TV, I'm just kind of like, it's Players Club, like this heel stable they were in. So and Inspire, and like I've watched her constantly, so it's kind of this thing of like almost diluted, and so I have a hard time gauging how I react to her versus other people just because I'm so like almost like intimately from a wrestling standpoint used to her work. And so that is something to call out if I don't seem as engaged in this match as everybody else. But it was very good. It was very good. So I put in my notes, Nigel and Morrow do the exact same thing on commentary and forcing in like a name drop. But when Nigel does it, it's endearing. And when Morrow does it, I'm like, shut up. Because like Nigel's like, Shades of Minoru Suzuki. And I'm like, hell yeah. And then Morrow says some dumb shit about hip hop. I'm like, dude, just shut up. What else do I have here? This is, Devin Oracle had mentioned it earlier, but this was when Asuka was kind of turning into like she was acting just kind of like the head cheerleader, kind of stuck up bitch of everything I do is better than you do, like her little mannerisms and whatnot. It was really cool, and she was just untouchable this time, man. That's what made this match exciting at the time, was just people like, who the fuck's going to beat this woman? And everyone just assumed, well, she's got to be leaving soon, so Ember Moon's going to win, and that did not happen. I do like the touch of Asuka's desperate and tries to cheat to win, but in the end she doesn't really need to. I don't know why. I don't know what that says. Probably in hindsight makes Ember look kind of bad. But where I will contend, her winning here was not the problem. The problem was they did something very stupid down the line that made this seem like a problem. In one foul swoop, they kind of undid all the good faith with Asuka, and it's this domino effect of you starting to question, like, well, then why did she have to beat this woman? Why did she have to beat this one? Why did this have to happen? That type of thing. So, it's coming. It's not far off the horizon. It's coming up, but like, little bit of overacting, like the NXT Shawn Michaels stare at my hands type shit. It's just par for the course with that, though. Unfortunately, I did realize though in doing this, that's kind of the brilliance of Asuka, is because she is so like effervescent and just kind of overly emotive about everything that nothing she does as far as reactions seems stupid. Like if she does react like like when something happens, it's like, oh yeah, she would do that. And lastly here, I did go back and look at it. I had this as my number 11 match of the year in 2017.
Okay, do you have the list in front of you?
I do. I have it for the next 3 years just because I knew we were going to be referencing it.
Now, feel free to protect yourself by leaving out some names that may no longer be,
Yeah, so 10 and 9 ain't worth bringing up because of that. Number 8, Nakamura, Bobby Roode, TakeOver San Antonio. Number 7, AJ Styles, John Cena from the Royal Rumble. Okay. Number 6, AJ Styles, Brock Lesnar from Survivor Series of that year. Oh. Number 5, the Monster 4-Way from SummerSlam, the main event with Big Joe, Roman. I stand by this, but only one person's going to pop for this. Matt Riddle versus Gunnar Miller from the SCI 2017. Number 3, we had Okada Omega from Wrestle Kingdom. That you can make fun of it all you want. It's still like one of the greatest title matches ever in wrestling.
Amazing, yeah.
Here you go, Joe. Tyler Bate versus Pete Dunne from TakeOver Chicago.
That was an insult. That was unnecessary. That didn't need to be directed at me. That was unnecessary. That was unfortunate.
They chant UK in that match.
Exactly. That shouldn't have been paired with me. That was unfortunate. I thought I was going to get like a Roderick Strong match. Then I was like,
that's the Chicago one, right?
Yeah. Roddy sprinkled throughout this, and Roddy also didn't start like really showing out until the next year when they put him on those tag matches in 2018.
Yeah, because he's a baby face here, right? Still a baby face.
Yeah, and then number 1, if anyone's followed me on Twitter longer than 2 minutes, they know it's Goldberg and Lesnar from WrestleMania that year.
Yeah. Bob, you got the action figure next year? My God, that head! Did you see that Undertaker deal he did?
This one?
Well, I meant the Bill one. That's fine.
Oh,
that's fine.
Oh, you got the old man Bill? Hell yeah!
Good rolls,
man. That Undertaker head shift he did was incredible, wasn't it?
Yeah, because I knew I had them and I said to find it.
Fair. I'm glad we lighten the mood here a little bit because obviously I have to address some things.
I yield the floor to you.
I actually think there's a lot of there's a lot of credibility to the argument you went with there of if the rest of the story is done correctly, this is not as big a miss. Like if Charlotte does it, it makes sense. I agree with that. At the same time, this was the moment. This was the time. This was clearly it. The best way to see how much so is the fact that in the introductions, it's a split crowd, but they're leaning Asuka. And by the end of the match, when they're doing like dueling chants, it's shifted and there's like an actual majority that wants the title change because it just felt right. The match was that hot and that fucking good. In all seriousness, I'm not actually going to get super mad at the result. It is what it is. Athena is a flawed talent, which would have meant for some of her frailties being a thing anyway. I really would like to see the timeline where she gets this win to see how it works out because I think we can all agree that her winning the belt in a 4-way while Asuka watched on and handed her the belt was not exactly, that wasn't it. But I think, like most of the wrestlers I like, while her career is maybe not glittered with kind of stardom and success, I think she's had a very good career. So I'm not going to, there's no point being dramatic as much as it would be good for content's sake. What I will say about this match is it is an incredible marriage of like the modern work rate match, but it is wrestled with such passion, When Ember comes out of those gates and fucking drops Asuka, they are working at like this incredible pace, but it never feels like they're being showy about it, It's like they're locked in. The work on Ember's shoulder is great, which is something that established on the TV show, the way it's sold. Some of Asuka's work on that show, like, it's just so fucking good. And honestly, all bits aside, I would rather we do a better job of like remembering how good this match was rather than what has happened, which is it's become its only place in history is why didn't Ember win? And it's like, look, man, I think it's a very fair question. I think she should have won. But I think this match is like incredible. And I think it's too often just forgotten because the result is anything anyone ever talks about. Like, this match is fucking amazing, man. Like,
yeah.
That's a story for a lot of like this NXT golden age is like, It seems like the actual matches are overshadowed by either talks of booking or just this like mythos of what it is. And when you get down to it, like the two things we talked about and all the shit we can't stop bringing up, this was a great fucking wrestling product, dude. And I can't believe I rewatched this and I remembered from watching it, they do that. Asuka does that awesome shitty heel thing of putting the disarmor on her and then staring at Becky, and the commentary does not acknowledge it at all.
That's something I actually tweeted a clip of it. After this match, they come back from like the break or whatever, they've cut it out wherever it was, and they showed Kevin Owens and Samoa Joe in the crowd, and they get these like big pops. And I said, as much as it became a meme when they'd have new signings in the crowd, how fucking cool was it at TakeOver when top guys and top stars would be in the crowd watching, and they would get that moment when the crowd would. Alex and I are big fucking combat sports guys. When there's a big prize fight, there's nothing cooler than when they do like the round of the crowd and there's all of these superstars watching. Man, there was some touches to this presentation that were fabulous. Again, I think Ember should have won, but I'm not going to be performing about it. I'm just glad this match exists. This match is fucking awesome, man. Like, I hope one day, sincerely, I hope that Athena's AEW run goes the way I think it could. And people can look back on this without what could have been and just kind of accept it as being great, I don't know if it will go that way because, there's some hurdles in the way of any woman in AEW. It is what it is. But I think, Bobby and Oracle can attest that it's become pretty clear that even post the Achilles injury, she's still like one of their top, very much top workers. So hopefully if she gets a great run there, we won't have to spend so much time, us four Ember Moon fans, being like, what could have been in 2017, But I don't know, man. It's a fucking awesome match. That's what I do know.
I do, and last compliment to it, she hits the Eclipse, and there's still like 6 or 7 minutes left to go in the match. I do like the idea of like, now you just wait till the end and you trade finishers, but the idea of like, this is my move. I'm going to put everything into it that I can and hope it ends the match. And as soon as I can hit it, that's best for me.
And the match is so well paced that even though it's hit like blunt and isn't in transition, she just hits it. They actually think it's the finish because it's that well wrestled, In lesser workers' hands, they would never would have bought it because the way it was placed in the match. But it was paced so perfectly God, it's just such a great match. Genuinely, it's incredible. If anyone's not watched this in a while and they'd listen to this and they remember it, revisit it. Like, it's that good. It's just an exceptional match. They had such great chemistry. Okay. Other hits from this act. We mentioned Emma. We mentioned the Bailey feud. The other Ember match. Is there any others that we have to cover? I think like we've kind of covered the whole run almost here, right? For Asuka.
She had such a presence that like you're not going to go wrong by, even if it's a squash match, watching any match she had at this point in time. It was rewarding to watch the weekly shows because there was, Joe, you might remember this. There was this, they had built up Liv Morgan, and it was like this month-long thing where they announced, I think 3 weeks out, that on, July 14th, Liv Morgan versus Asuka. The match was fucking 20 seconds long. Like, Liv Morgan ran at her and Asuka took her down and just immediately tapped her out. And I was like, well, that was awesome. Because, that's not something that you're accustomed to on TV wrestling. So the 4-way from the January takeover is just kind of chaotic, and God bless the Iconics, but they were still pretty fresh at the time. But man, anything from this time period you can find. I went to one of the NXT house shows in 2017. Was fortunate enough to do that. It was Finn's last show. The main event was Finn and Nakamura against Samoa Joe and Bob Roode, and the women's undercard match was Asuka defending her title against Nia, and they just did like this comedy style match that was very, very entertaining. Like Nia hit the jackhammer and Asuka kicked out and the place went fucking insane. Like, it was just it was a different time. So my recommendation is like anything you can find of Asuka during her NXT run is worth watching, just because it was so different than anything else.
I've talked about this before, but this show is a love letter to NXT. July 16th, 2016. House show main event. You ready for this? American Alpha. Bailey, Finn Balor, and Shinsuke Nakamura versus Bobby Roode, Alexa Bliss, Samoa Joe, and the Revival.
Wow.
My God.
What did we do wrong? Where did we fuck this up? Did you just hear that team? That was like my faction or something. Did you hear? It was like the Holbert family. Did you hear them? Mm-hmm. Alexa, Bob Roode, Sam Joe, Dash and Dawson. I could have been out there.
It's that meme, like, be ashamed if someone ruined it, but it's Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa in the background.
And here comes the manager, Roberto Garza, as he comes up here.
Joe in the fucking Grand Wizard headset. Look at my men. They're infallible.
Seriously, though, we've had a lot of fun with it, but like, I think I can speak for Alex in saying that while we're framing it a certain way, our message is absolutely sincere. This stuff fucking ruled, man. God, I miss it. I miss it so much. But
NXT has become this like punchline / it's and again, NXT is not even 10 years old, or I guess in the name is, but like,
right.
Man, we just had like a blessed run there though. And if you're new to the game and you've never really revisited it or seen it at all, going back and watching some of that golden age shit. I mean, the weekly show was 45 minutes. You can just binge that shit, man.
Yeah, it ruled. It really did. Oracle, Bobby, any other matches from Act 2 NXT run for us? Any other matches that need shouting out? I think we've covered most, right?
Yeah, I think we covered pretty much all of it. I saw Asuka face Billie Kay at one of those house shows in 2016. It was fun. I mean, not the pedigree of some other people she could have faced, but it was good enough,
How hard did she hit in that one, Bob?
She was laying it in there.
She was?
Yeah, a little bit. For a couple
God
minutes.
Bless.
Yeah,
Oracle, anything to shout out?
Yeah, somebody did mention the Nia Jax match, which was a pretty good match.
Yeah. Take over the end.
Yeah, take over the end. They also had a good match in Japan that was like taped and like aired at the end of the year.
Japan TV. Oh baby. As they did a title change in Japan, remember?
That's right. My God.
Speaking of performing, which Joe did not do for the Ember Moon loss. So like at work, I was in the break room, and someone had Undisputed on. This is yesterday morning, and it was Skip Bayless talking about Baker Mayfield and defending him, and like I was doing something, like there were other people in the room, and I was like, just like trying not to burst out laughing. Like people were like looking at me, and I was just like desperately trying not to like laugh at this
Tremendous.
incredible performance going on the television.
Bro, I was convinced because I said the Japan TV, and you said, speaking of Joe not performing, I was like, Jesus, Sam Joe Stray on the fucking Grin Grappler. Because I remember those matches being, well, you know, we don't need to get into that. That's fine. But yeah, it ruled, folks. We miss it. Someone save us. Our TV, squash matches. Fuck, it's all gone. Act 3. Before we even cover the matches, we have to talk about the elephant in the room. Asuka's main roster, she works Emma. Edge thought the match was bad. She... Oh no! Why would you taunt yourself with that? It's terrible.
Dude, I said on the last one I was going to wear it, and then I just stared at it today, and I was like, nope, it's cursed.
Yeah.
It's one of those I got it the weekend of because I thought it was going to be this big coronation and something cool to have, and now it just will sit in my collection and collect dust.
Before that, Asuka has this run where she basically beats everyone on Raw. Right? She beats Sasha, she beats Alexa, she beats everyone, she wins the Rumble. She picks Charlotte Flair, the Queen. Yes?
I do need to say they were already fucking up here because this poor girl who obviously does not speak English well, I think the first time she was on Raw, they asked her to go do a 3-minute live promo in the ring. And, you know, she's trying to remember what to say while translating it to English, that type of thing. And it's just, this is one of the most frustrating things in the world because it's like they're doing the right things. Like, I don't know if you remember, she was the sole survivor at the Survivor Series team match.
Mm-hmm.
And then she won the Royal Rumble and she was beating people, but they were still like 50-50 and her promos were bad. And it was like one of these things that when you're as jaded and watched as much as we have, you're like, okay, they know what to do and they're kind of doing it, but they're also like trying to cut this off at the knees as it goes along. So by the time we got to that goddamn fucking show in New Orleans, it was just kind of like, come on, please just do the right thing here.
Indeed. That brings us to that goddamn show in New Orleans, which is a very fair way of recalling it. WrestleMania 34, the night the wrestling died. Charlotte Flair and Asuka. SmackDown was title on the line. This is not a match we're covering, but it is the thing we just have to talk about to some extent. The streak ends. Alex, I don't want to make you wait. I want you can go, man. You can just speak about as much or as little as you want. Go for it.
I'll take the floor, and as negative as I get here, I'll swing back when I talk about how great the Kabuki Warriors were. So stick with me, all. Despite what that fucking nerd Seth Rollins may say, wins and losses are the only thing that matter. It's all that matters. And you want to know why? I know that. What's the biggest attraction in wrestling right now? It's the guy who hasn't fucking lost in 2.5 years. That's what everyone wants to see because they want to know who's going to beat him. And people will say, the bootlickers and defenders will say, well, she got that whole undefeated streak up until there, or Charlotte needed to beat her. Didn't Charlotte lose to the fucking Iconics the next night or something like that? She lost the title like immediately, right?
Yeah, Carmella cashed in, yeah.
Okay, a lot of fucking good that did her.
Out of her and then, Carmella cashed in.
God bless her. Asuka has had a great career with them. She fits in the mold well and has had successes that we'll touch on here to go. But it's like in that moment, everything that led into that didn't fucking matter anymore. And that was the theme of that night. That was what I walked away from WrestleMania 34 with was, you guys don't want me to care? I don't anymore. And so it's just like, it didn't matter. All she had up until that point. And the chase is the whole story. It's like when Homicide won the ROH title or Jeff Hardy won the WWE title. All that mattered was she won that match in the end. And she didn't. And then she just became another person that lost to Charlotte. And then it didn't really mean anything. It really felt like, and as we've seen over the years, there's been this fucking dick measuring contest with Vince and like wanting to show that he doesn't care what Triple H has done and what he's built doesn't mean anything. And, I knew something was probably not good when it went on third. I was like, well, we're probably not going to get some big coronation here, but it was still disappointing. And it's one of those things of what makes it so much more frustrating is this isn't. We know they know how to do these things, and we know that they know what matters. And so the fact when they pull shit like this, it's like an extra. It sounds so stupid being a grown ass man that gets like invested in something I know is fake, but I want it to reward me. But when shit like this happens, it feels like they're saying, haha, we know that we know what we're doing, but we just want to fuck
Yes.
you. And so it's, and then they took it a step further with the whole, and like I said, Asuka's not a fucking mark. So she's just like, all right, pay me. But that whole thing where Charlotte was ready for Asuka, that was just like a character assassination. Like nothing you would have seen in the canon of that character up until that point made any sense with that happening. And then this happens, and mental dominoes. Well, why didn't Ember Moon win? Well, why did we go through this? Why did she win the Royal Rumble? Like,
Yeah.
and brother, that happened twice that night because Nakamura won the Rumble too and ended up just losing again. So it's like, in both those cases, Asuka a bit more dramatically because of what they had invested, or what we and Triple H and like her run had invested into her up until that point. And she won the belt and has had good matches since then. Never in a position to have a feature match at WrestleMania, but it really just felt like immediately she just became just another person. It's obviously she didn't draw the money of Bill Goldberg, but it's similar in the sense of when Goldberg lost to Nash, just another dude. Like that's what it is.
I'm glad you talked about the way it feels as a fan, because I think we're all hesitant at times to overplay it, because ultimately we are fucking adults watching professional wrestling, right? I think none of us want to be that dude who's like yelling and screaming and making a fool of themselves. But like, there was absolutely a thing with the main roster where it felt like you were being aggressively insulted for like caring at all.
Yes.
And I don't want to speak for you guys, but I think we're all online enough to know what I'm talking about here. Like, that was especially exacerbated by the way people would talk about it. Like if you logged on that night and was like, "Why the fuck did my favorite wrestler get like destroyed like this as a character?" People would be like, "Well, she won for the last 18 months, bro. Like, let someone else enjoy themselves." Charlotte Flair fans, it's like, "Fuck, no, I'm mad about it."
Yeah.
Like it's in so many ways, like we joke for that night. That night is genuinely like an encapsulation of everything they were bad at for that last 10 years of Vince's regime, 15 fucking, I don't know, but like, Jesus, man, like, just
and that
do
was
what
like
people want sometimes,
And that was like the start of it. Like I remember people wanted Finn to win the match, but when Seth won, everyone's like, okay. And then with that, it was just like, oh God, like we kept getting like hit with these shots, and it's like, but that in hindsight, that being the most damaging to someone's character, because obviously Roman's come back and Nakamura is getting paid, that type of thing. But I'm not comparing this to Star Wars, but I remember reading an article in Forbes when the last one came out, Rise of Skywalker, that talked about there will be other Star Wars movies. That franchise will continue, but Rise of Skywalker was the only chance they'll ever have to end the original saga.
Yeah.
And it's all that matters is that you stick the landing. And I think that's a decent parallel or parable for this Asuka situation of like, we can look back with rose-tinted glasses, and we do, on how good her run was, but the ending was wrong. So it's always going to be looking back like with life on its side of like, well, it was good, but it could have been great. And this is what drives me insane with like WWE Defend Us. And I don't even engage anymore, but I did back in those days. The thing of like, well, if she Baby Yoda, Kyrie is whatever the greatest character is in the history of the franchise is what Kyrie is. But the argument people made were like, well, if she lost the next month on pay-per-view, you'd bitch. And it's like, probably, but at least she would have had the moment where she won, and the conclusion of the story would have been right. It's like, honestly speaking, as long as she won that, she probably could have lost to Carmella the next night, and it would have been like, shit, but it's still, that moment would exist. And again, I'm sorry, just to finish it, because of their obsession with WrestleMania moments, despite the wins and losses don't matter, they know how much they want us to perceive what matters at WrestleMania is the only shit that matters. So it's just like this giant abusive self-loathing relationship they have or had with their fans. I don't know. Paul has apparently changed the world, but it's I think that particular night, and that being the most egregious of which, really, there's a reason we pinpoint that event as like the most shining example of what we're talking about. And I think that match and that character assassination was like the high point or low point.
I agree with everything you said. I will say, though, the fact that the follow-up to it was that Carmella feud with James Ellsworth is definitely like an incredible layer to the bit, right? Like, you're right. If she'd have won and lost there, at least she had that moment. But the fact they not only ended the streak was also like, now go 12 minutes with Carmella. Like, fuck, man.
That was right after when they brought back Ellsworth. I didn't remember that was right. Oh, my God.
She was Carmella's program, like, to establish Carmella as champ. They had these, like, they had some matches.
Because the Money in the Bank finish is Ellsworth is dressed as Asuka and it throws her off and Carmella pins her.
This is a different thing. But the match in between...
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Joe.
No, when the Charlotte Carmella match in between is like one of the worst pay-per-view matches in the history of the world.
Oh, that match is one of the worst matches I've ever seen.
It's unbelievable. That's the one where like they just lose their way to Carmella, just grabs the hold and they just sit in it for like 8 minutes because they have nothing else they could possibly offer.
So bad.
Show's fucking awful. What was you gonna say, Alex?
That James Ellsworth just showed up dressed as Asuka, and they're like, "Oh, well, this is fitting because we were gonna have you do this anyway." Did she say Carmella was ready for Asuka when she won?
She did not. No, I don't think so. Anyway, she might have. I think we all stopped watching around that time. You know.
I could not tell you anything that happened, but yeah,
I'm just
Charlotte.
You know,
Charlotte.
I'm glad they made a star. You know, Charlotte's a big star. She's, everyone. The thing about Charlotte is, she's been the champ. She's been the champ. She had the belt a few times. 4, 5, 6, 14 times. And what I like about Charlotte is because she's such a selfless performer as a 14-time champ.
Yeah.
When she's off TV, you'll notice that no one asks where she is or cares. And I think that speaks to how big a star she is, I mean, every week I see speculation about Sasha Banks' return. And I never see that. That's how good Charlotte is. They just know she'll be back eventually. Don't worry
How long has she been gone?
Well, she married Andrade and he came back 4 months ago, so she'll be back any time now.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever seen a wrestler regress more than Charlotte Flair. And that's to your point. She's had a tough road to get where she's at. And I think it's deserved. Yeah.
She's a big star. I mean, she drew many a house for them on the back of this win, as we know. The only wrestler in recorded history to have more title reigns than sold T-shirts, which is still an incredible feat. In an era where every major
sadly we got one right here, baby.
In an era where every major female star has got like a dedicated, loyal fan base that drives everyone crazy, she has managed to avoid that, which I find to be admirable. So,
by choice,
these are the games we play. Elliot, there was no reason to bring up that Samoa Joe Roman Reigns match. That one has been shot from the memory, erased forever. Oracle, Bob, anything on the streak ending?
No, I don't think it was a very good idea. They probably shouldn't have done that.
Fair. Oracle, do you co-sign this take from Bobby?
I do agree. Yes.
All right, let's move on. Let's try and recover here. All right. December 16th, 2018, TLC, Triple Threat TLC match. This pay-per-view was 4 hours long because this is when they ended the brand pay-per-view, so everything had to go 4 hours. The aforementioned Charlotte Flair is here. Becky Lynch is here. She is, in fact, the man. Asuka has kind of like backdoored her way into this scenario. There was a very memorable moment when Becky couldn't wrestle Ronda. She had the division in front of her to pick her replacement. And when she went to Asuka, the whole place popped because people like Asuka, which is always kind of surprising to those in power, I believe. So here we are, come months after that. A huge moment in Asuka's WWE career, right? Seriously. I mean, while it isn't what it could have been with the streak and stuff, this did kind of get her back on track, and she's had a really nice few years since then. I'll be totally honest with you guys. I'll lead the way with this, and then we can be more positive because it's been quite the last 20 minutes. These matches, these aren't my thing, man. You know? There's so much maneuvering of like ladders and positioning, and that's why like, the Nikki match at least feels organic. It's like, I don't know. It's a big old stunt show, but it is very, very well done. Oracle, what did you make of the TLC triple threat?
This is like an extremely entertaining match. It's just like, yeah, it's not like, I don't know, it's not like great necessarily in the traditional sense, but it's just very fun to watch. Like, it's just totally like, crowd's great, and like they just do like totally ridiculous shit, and like these long setups, and like they take these crazy spots. There's one part where like Becky Lynch just gets a chair and like is legitimately like violently beating the shit out of him with a chair. I was actually surprised at how hard she was hitting him with it.
Yeah, me too.
And then they did there's the one spot that always stands out to me, for as much as we give Charlotte shit, was one where she like murdered Asuka with a spear, and the barricade didn't even totally break. And then Charlotte did like her Hulk up shit.
She's fun in this, man. She's fucking physical. I would never say she's boring to watch in this setting. You know?
She goes insane in this fucking match, and it actually kind of rules.
It does.
Credit to Asuka, since this is a podcast about her. She really held the match together in the first 5 minutes. Like she was a standout there, like kind of like the wrestling portion and getting everything set up to like the early brawling and whatnot. She was excellent. Becky's leg drop is ridiculous. Like that looked like, I mean, that had to have hurt. Like she just like drops like ass first.
She's
and like
tough as
the way that they like crumble and like, ow.
She's
that's
so
the
tough,
thing where
man.
Charlotte, she had to have the win completely knocked out of her.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
She hit her right in the wind, like right in the stomach.
Well, and then they bounce because the table doesn't break, and then it just kind of crumbles. I remember earlier this year, Braun Breaker gave Tom Chomper Alabama Slam on the announce table, and the exact same thing happened where he just hit it and bounced, and then like the table went like afterwards, like it's the Rainier Wolfcastle. The table does nothing, and that's that was so fucking brutal in this match.
You can tell too, like after the spot, like Becky's like, and then like Charlotte's doing the whole lot. I mean, Charlotte's always kind of like, but she was like, oh. Charlotte was like, oh,
dude,
she's like, my eye.
There was an all-time classic refusal to catch Charlotte's moonsault in this match. Where they did the great one where they stand next to each other and both of them assume the other one's going to do the catch. She just goes directly in between them. Which I am convinced and will always be convinced that is like the world's poetic justice after the way that Rick caught Shawn at WrestleMania 24. You know, when he just like moves out of the way? I think that was a curse. I think she's had to deal with the repercussions of that ever since. I'm convinced of it. But yeah, no, in all seriousness, Charlotte is a hoot in this match. But the first 5 minutes of it, as you said, Asuka's stuff is incredible, man. Oh my God, she's so on point at the start of this match. It's an absolute hoot. Bobby, what did you make? TLC triple threat.
Yeah, I liked it quite a bit. The thing with these sorts of matches is you're just going to remember the 3 or 4 big spots, and as long as those hit, usually you're going to find yourself enjoying it. And I think they did. Oracle talked about the barricade spear and the leg drop and all that, and it was good. And it was nice to see Asuka get the win and kind of get that moment finally, like you were talking about a little bit.
Absolutely, Alex. I imagine this was a rewarding experience, a validating experience for you. Back on track. What did you think?
Yeah, besides Asuka winning, I love this match. I think it's these type of big, dumb WWE main events are necessary, and I like how it feels that way. I like if you watch nothing else on this show, and Mother of God, I pulled up the rest of this card while you were doing the intro, Joe. I forgot this was the show where fucking Ambrose and Rollins had that ill-fated 25-minute match where they were feuding and like and this match was the 12th match on the show too. So God bless the crowd for sticking with it. But it has that sense of just kind of like, all right, we know it's a main event, so we're just going to like allow this to kind of build. And I love triple threat matches. Always just, it's so simple, but people just complicate it. I just love that the story is Becky and Charlotte are feuding, and then Asuka's like, "Fuck you, I'm right here, and I'm going to beat the shit out of you." So like that's the way it starts. Is Becky and Charlotte are in each other's faces, going nuts. Charlotte is in peak form here. I mean, sincerely, when I say she regressed, it's because at one point I held her in such high regard. I thought she was one of the best, like, consistent performers they had, or wrestler superstars they had on their roster, and when she wanted to, could just be phenomenal. Yeah. There's this part at the end of the match where Asuka wins and they cut to Charlotte and she's just looking up pissed off, and she's not like selling. It's just this thing of like, God damn it. And she's just like mad at what happened. And it's little things like that you can't teach, and what makes it so good. Oracle called out the horrendous table bump. Dude, Becky, the nastiest bump in this match is Becky takes the military press off the second rope onto just a ladder that's laying on the ground, on her back. And, you know, I remember Brian Alvarez once saying, he's like, you know what's different about Mick Foley and Sasha Banks taking bumps is Mick Foley's got a 300-pound fat ass and Sasha Banks is a 125-pound woman. And it's like, that's what I thought of immediately when Becky hit that. I was like, God, I can't imagine how painful that would be. What else do we have here? My note says LOL Ronda, because Ronda's pro wrestling walk is just like the best thing in the world. But again, it kind of goes back to what we're talking about with Asuka. Asuka wins this match, which sets up the main event of WrestleMania, which Asuka isn't on. Like, that's kind of where this all leads to.
It's even worse than that, because not only is she not in the match, she doesn't get her own match because Charlotte just beats her for the belt at like last minute. Remember, that's the craziest part of it.
I always pop big.
2 weeks before.
I always pop big. Sorry, Joe.
You're good, gun.
I always pop big at the finish. Like Becky and Charlotte are like, fuck this. We've taken crazy bumps all fucking night. We're softly falling off this ladder.
Yeah,
we are not fucking toppling over the ropes here and killing ourselves. We've taken way too much of a beating here. We're just gonna fall. We're just gonna lightly.
But I feel like in the end, though, it's a genuine crowd reaction, and when they sense what's going to happen, when Asuka's going to win, and they keep. And man, Dunn must have had a gun to his head because he stays disciplined on this. They just keep that one wide shot, and you can see like people genuinely like not yet jumping up and down, but like, oh my God, it's going to happen. When Asuka wins, it just gets this huge, genuine reaction. I was smitten with this match so much at the time that it landed number 2 in my match of the year rankings. I would readjust that in hindsight, but that's how much I loved this match at the time.
What was the top 5 excluding problematic characters, Alex?
Number 5, Andrade Cien Almos versus Johnny Gargano from TakeOver Philadelphia.
Classic.
Lesnar and Bryan from Survivor Series.
Oh yeah.
The men's Royal Rumble match that Nakamura won. That is one of the best Rumble matches ever.
Fucking ruled. Yep.
And then, I mean, there's no other choice for 2018 number 1 match of the year was PCO versus Walter from Spring Break 2.
My God, it was a different time. It was a different time. I forgot how bad that shit was, man. They got to like the month of WrestleMania. It was like, wait, who's Asuka wrestling? I don't fucking know. Sonya Deville or something, maybe.
Oh yeah.
And they just said it was winner takes all and all that shit.
It was just like days before, right?
Yeah. Because it was a thing at the time. The big discussion was like, what is the SmackDown match? And I guess they never asked. And I don't know.
Asuka was just like, I think it's also important when you watch this is like the whole thing where people were mad when Charlotte got added. And it's like, no, that's clearly the story they had been telling for 4 months before this. It was like the 3 of them feuding. And the match was okay. But Ronda, God bless her, went into business for herself and made sure her shoulder wasn't down for that 3 count.
Oh dear, what a time this was, folks. There's a lot going on here.
Yeah, but it'll be fun when they do Ronda Becky again at WrestleMania this year.
Yeah, because the air isn't out of the balloon, and it's definitely something people are still calling for.
Yeah, exactly.
Watching fucking Ronda Rousey go 50-50 with Liv Morgan.
Do you think they'll actually do that now that Vince isn't there? You think Triple Paul will change the course there?
Charlotte's got to come back sometime, and Paul was obsessed with Charlotte.
That's
So
true.
it's like, I don't know.
My big problem is like, I think the women's division fucking rules. But whenever it comes to Mania time, they almost always land on matches I don't want to see. Like, without foul. Like, Bianca's match is going to be Charlotte, man. Like,
Yeah.
and like, you know what that build's going to be, and you know how many times they're going to say the word athlete, and it's going to be fucking, you know, like, you're going to do cartwheel spots and shit like that. And it's like, I don't know. Like, all of the one, like, I don't want to see it. I'm not gonna watch it. I refuse. You're not gonna make me, Bob. You're not making me. I'm not doing it.
Okay.
And then it's just gonna be Charlotte and Bianca. It's gonna be Ronda and Becky. That's what the match is gonna be.
Yeah.
Look, there's one thing I want at WrestleMania, and if that happens, the rest of the card can be Brian Cage matches.
The American Nightmare, brother.
Yeah.
Code Man.
Oh yeah.
Code
See,
Man.
I'm slightly concerned about the American Nightmare because Triple Paul. I don't know. Maybe. Well, I don't know.
He's too obsessed with perception. He'll make it happen. Trust me.
Yeah.
Yeah. People have been freaking me out saying that like they're going to turn into Cody versus Bray at WrestleMania, and that would just be like, I'm done. I would slowly, like in fucking GTA Vice City, I would just slowly walk out into the water.
Hold on. Don't be too hasty.
Great callback there. Excellent.
Don't be too hasty. Okay. Cody versus Bray, bad idea. Cody and Brandy versus Bray and Alexa. We're talking box office, you know what I mean? You talking open mic night, you know?
They call you the American Nightmare. Well, I call you the American Liar.
Okay. Oh dear, this match is a hoot. I agree with your description. I didn't like it, as much as you, but I appreciate the pop it gave you. It's not my thing, just as a personal preference, but I could very much appreciate what it was, and I agree with you totally. This being the main event, it was a really good fit, and especially after the match that came before it, which I had forgotten about until now. So yeah, it's absolutely an absolute blast. I forgot that Charlotte's thing at this time was like the kendo stick. She's like the Sandman. Like a signature spot,
It's like the bottle of Powerade.
Yeah. So it's a hoot. It's a hell of a time. It's like a big blockbuster action movie. So I did enjoy it very, very much. Okay, let's proceed. February 10th, 2020, a glorious time in Gotham City as Paul E. dangerously leads our fearless Raw Warriors into a brighter day. Little does he know that he is about to fall victim to the novel coronavirus. He didn't die or anything. He just lost the book. Samoa Joe is doing angles with the Viking Raiders. Kevin Owens is recruiting the Big Show for a hot trios main event program. Andrade, Bud Matt, and Tommy End are the focus of a new generation. It was a wonderful time. And this is a great fucking match. This felt like one of those great Brett title matches when he wrestled Kid. You know what I'm saying? Like, it had this really awesome feel to it. It's such a wonderful fucking experience. I really love this. Let's talk about the Becky Lynch title match. This is a rematch from Royal Rumble, which was a rematch from the Royal Rumble before that. It's worth piecing that together before we go any further. Asuka, as we just said, dropped the belt before WrestleMania. She did beat Becky at the Royal Rumble, which makes that even funnier, but nonetheless. Then post-WrestleMania, she was put with Kairi Sane in the Kabuki Warriors with Paige. Pop. Then they did a double turn against Bliss Cross, which is the often forgotten WWF factual, and it rolled. That was in October 2019. She went to a program.
That was at Hell in a Cell 2019, which is actually an excellent show until the all-time bad main event.
It's also one of the weirdest shows I've ever done because they announced most of the card like the day of. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
They didn't because Paul Heyman realized, wait, do I get any credit for having matches on pay-per-view? And they're like, no. He's like, well, fuck pay-per-view. And that was a good idea. I agree with Paul. So they turn there, and then she does this program with Becky. I didn't think the Rumble match was nearly as good as the year before. I think the Rumble 2019 match is awesome. 2020 is good. This Raw match, though, and Oracle, you were the one who actually, said this was where we should go, and I think you were right to do so because it had more distance between the ladder match too. So it was a nice kind of era thing. revisiting Oracle, what do you think of this Raw title match?
Just a really terrific, fast-paced, title match on TV. Just the pace that they worked.
Yeah.
Everything looks so good. Like their chemistry's always been really good, but what always stuck out to me was just the pace that they work, because they work like these big time title matches at the Rumbles, and this match they're just going, but like still letting everything mean something, and like
selling, it's smooth, yeah, man.
Excellent. And then they got the, I don't love the I don't love Becky's Uranagi. I mean, it's not.
Call it a rock bottom, you fucking mark.
Well, I mean, it is a rock bottom, but I mean, hey, at least I don't call the 619 the Tiger Fink kick. I won't do that.
There you go.
Sure.
But like, well, I don't know.
What does she call it? What does she call the move? She has a name for it.
Yeah,
the manhandle slam.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
I can't remember it. To be fair, the rock bottom was always always my favorite. Like, other than like Joe's version, like the rock bottom, he was like,
I never did.
Jumped with they jumped up, like he would jump with everybody, and like he would like leave his feet like sometimes.
Dwayne always hit the Superman pose, like in the air when he did it.
It ruled.
Yeah.
It fucking ruled.
Or like I think that's why I always like think of the rock bottom differently than the Uranagi, because like the Uranagi, you're just standing and then the person's like swinging their legs up, and
you're right.
Or he's like doing the Superman pose.
I was just messing with you because I remember like at the time it took Meltzer like 3 or 4 years before he called it the rock bottom, and like in the newsletter he would always call it the Uranage, and it's just like, what a fucking nerd, dude.
That fucking rules.
Says the guy that I couldn't remember the name of the move, so I called it Jimmy Rave's finisher earlier. Yeah, hypocrite.
The way they go to that finish,
ROH bot,
robot.
The way they go to that finish does fucking rule, though, right? After all the pinning,
absolutely. Well, the thing is like when you do like the Jerry Lynn RVD deal, which I always think of, you can't do it for 17 minutes like they did.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do it like a couple of times, and then I liked it because he did it a couple of times, and a lot of times you think they'll like do like a double clothesline or they'll do near fall. No. They ended it right afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
They do it, and then they get manhandle slam. That's it. It's just the pace, the way they did the finish. It was an excellent match, man. Like it was. It's probably my favorite match of theirs. I don't know. I might like the Rumble match better, 19, but like this match is really fucking good.
I really like what this added to the lineup because it's different, And this is such an easy, smooth watch. I think it shows Asuka's range as a worker in a lot of ways, because I think this match. I mean, look at where we started and where we ended. Could those matches be any more distant from each other stylistically, right? Like, this was like a traditional US TV match in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, and I mean that as a compliment. Like, I thought it was fucking awesome. I love what they did with this. Alex, what did you make of this singles match with Becky?
Before we get into this, I need to give the Kabuki Warriors their moment in the sun here, because, like you said, they were originally paired as like, we don't have anything Vince as well. They're both Japanese, so they really had nothing for them. So they were originally a babyface team where they both just kept their same looks, and now Paige was managing them and was doing the voice for them. They got the last great WWF T-shirt, which I do have right here. I think they got 2 good shirts out of their run, but that pink one, I remember like at the time it was announced as like a Japanese exclusive, but then it sold well, so they branched it out everywhere else. And then they got that, and then when they turned heel, they started wearing like tag gear, like they matched and looked fucking awesome. And they got that banger theme song, and like, they were featured heavily. They were the main event segment of Raw, like regularly. Like I was so invested in them. That's when I still watched the program weekly. Infamously, they had the main event match on Raw against Natty and Lacey Evans, and Lacey fucked up 3 spots in a row, and Kyrie hit her in the face as hard as she possibly could. It was something that you need to see.
Bro, God bless Paulie Dangerously. What a fucking legend. Dude, flinging out there, Lacey and Natty to tag.
The entire Raw program, like the whole main event, like they built 3 months to that Kabuki Warriors versus Charlotte Becky tag at TLC, which is
a disaster.
It is a disaster. Like the match, you can tell they're desperately like they like Becky and poor Kyrie. Charlotte was such a piece of shit in that match, and like I mean she was.
She
And
was.
Becky, God bless her, did everything she could to try to like protect Kyrie, and Becky and Asuka did their best to try to steer the ship a little bit and finish the match as best they could. But they built that. It was like a 3-month program they built up to that. It was crazy.
They had a good match on like their good tag match was like on a London
Mm-hmm.
Raw.
On Raw, yeah.
The only reason I remember it was the UK was because Becky, because she's a badass, did the Liam Gallagher at Kyrie or whatever. But yeah, so when they debuted the Mist is when they like turned heel and she misted Paige and like it was a fucking awesome run, and they would just go out and do these screaming promos in Japanese, and like it was cool. Like it was obvious it wasn't going to go anywhere, but they were just like, Heyman and them were like, well, since you're here, just do whatever you want to do. Go out there and do it. And that's how we got the Asuka with the face paint and all that shit. They had a good run. They had some good matches,
Yes.
Not any great ones, but some good matches. And then Kyrie was gone shortly after this.
Mm-hmm.
As I tweet about regularly, the last full episode of Raw I watched was Kyrie Sane's last Raw in the WWE. Has nothing to do with this, but why she's such a fucking great performer. And also LOL WWE. If you're not a mark, they can't fuck with you thing. Kyrie's last night in the company, they had her beat the champion. That's always like one of my favorite things. And her reaction was so genuine and great. And her and Asuka had a cool moment after that. But anyway, my first note in this match is LOL at early 2020. We are 4 weeks away from the world falling apart at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the one where I watched on YouTube, which cuts off right at the end. Shayna showed up after this, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. A famous angle. A
4 weeks
classic.
away from Rudy Gobert coughing into the.
God, poor Paulie.
All right.
He lost so much.
Kabuki Warrior is good. This match, not. I did. Okay. I do not at all like this era of Becky Lynch where she's trying to wrestle like John Cena. Like the man stuff, whatever, like when she turned heel at the end of 2018 and she was kind of finding her footing, she was doing some good shit. And then they did that shit where they tried to make her stone cold, where she was just doing like a Conor McGregor act. And it was just like, ugh. And she just kind of dominated everything. And then here was like the end of 2019 where she started viewing herself as like the star of the company, which good. It's what you should do if you're in that position. But she started trying to wrestle like John Cena and like big emotions and big moves and reactions to things. Like their match at the 2019 Rumble is awesome. And the one at 2020, I was like, what the fuck is this? And then, so this match happened and I'm just not as crazy about it as y'all. I did lose my mind for she catches her on the ropes and puts her in the disarmer. Quickest way to pop your boy is to do any move that involves the ropes that makes your move like more impactful. So I really appreciated that, but it was a TV match, and I'll say this, the positive note, it made me realize how much I appreciated Becky's most recent run. I loved Big Time Bex, but like this era here, like that match she had with Shayna, the Performance Center Mania, was just like, what are you doing? And that's kind of what I felt watching this.
It is worth noting that Oracle and I are famed TV match perverts, right, Oracle? I mean, we
Yes.
you give
I
us
am
some
too,
meat
just
and
when they're good.
potatoes, Well, that was spiteful. That was unnecessary. Bob, settle this one for us.
Yeah, I think I have it right in the middle of their 3 matches. I think the 2019 Rumble match was better, but I like this more than the 2020 Rumble match. Something that really stuck out, and maybe it's just because it doesn't happen a ton anymore, just like how into it the crowd was, which you don't always get in WWE TV matches these days.
Someone didn't watch Alexa Bliss versus Io Sky. Jesus, fucking tell on yourself, why don't you, piece of shit?
That one, they were hanging from the rafters, man.
Oh, Jesus.
But yeah, no, I enjoyed it quite a bit. It just, yeah, it's a really solid TV match, and it really, it was a good inclusion on this list because it's not like a quote unquote big match, but it kind of was a good way to tie everything back up.
There you go, folks.
It is kind of, you could say, like the end of Asuka as the serious title challenger. And I'm not saying she's not good or doesn't. Obviously, she's still thriving, but it's like it really felt that once the pandemic era began into now, she's just kind of like a Saturday Night Live character. Like here's Asuka.
I agree, but I do think the SummerSlam stuff with Sasha and Bailey was a pretty cool deal for her. Like she was more as a character. You're right. She did become like ridiculous, but that the night where she lost to Bailey, right, Oracle? She beat Sasha. She wrestled twice on SummerSlam. I don't think you saw this because this was Thunderdome fucking.
No, I watched all the pay-per-views during that. Is that the one where she took that horrendous sunset bomb to the floor?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. Like, so I guess what I mean is that there was moments, but you're definitely right in terms of overall presentation. She's way more like, she's a kind of a caricature of herself, but she seems to have fun with it.
Oh, she's good at it too. So God bless her.
Yeah. Absolutely. Other match in this era, I wanted to work one of the Sasha matches on there. It just did the matches that made sense are ones from the empty arena. I can't watch that stuff, but I'm sorry, guys. It is what it is. The other Sasha match is really good, but Oracle and I concluded this was better. You get what you get, I suppose.
Yeah,
that was from Raw 2018.
Yeah.
Other stuff from this time, as much as we just did a bit about the WrestleMania 34 match, is fun, I guess, if you like that kind of thing. I enjoyed when she won the Real World's Tag League with Alexa Bliss in 2022. Don't remember the matches specifically, but I remember that being a thing. Any others, guys? What stands out from this time other than the stuff I just kind of run through there?
Do you remember when her and Alexa had a match and like Alexa was like slapping her legs and stuff and doing like the
one recently when Alexa inexplicably decided to slap her leg on every move and Vince's first TV wasn't there? It was weird.
Yeah.
Good rib. I respect it. Real pro. I'm trying to think. This is... Yeah, there's good stuff. Honestly, a lot of the empty arena stuff, she was the best at. I just...
Yeah.
What are you going to do, man?
She won the belt again, and it was really just to get the belt on Rhea. Like, she was a transitional champion at that point. And I think that match at 37... What has it been? I guess when she wrestles Rhea at WrestleMania, it's a showcase of what she can do as far as keeping a match together. Because I don't know how Rhea is now. She was another example of someone they just kind of forced into it or pushed into a spotlight before they were ready for it. And that match is not great, but Asuka gets a lot out of her because the next night they had a rematch on Raw, and it is the shits. So I think like it was just a matter of Asuka on that night wanting to be like, all right, let's do this.
There was definitely a chemistry issue there too, because like Rhea had some really good performances in NXT. I just think those two were like, but you're right, Asuka, she was very impressive on that Mania because Rhea wasn't on that night. It is what it is, It's a weird one because I feel like that dynamic feels like it would be so good.
It was weird because Rhea and like, even though it was like, well, granted there were like wrestlers as fans and they even got some fans throughout most of the year, but Rhea in NXT in like 2019, 2020 was awesome. Like, she was really, really good. Like, she had tons of good matches. That EO match for the title was incredible.
Yes.
Where like Rhea's earring got broken or whatever, and her earlobe was like, all cut up and bleeding, and it was incredible. And like,
that was a top 5 match of that year.
Is it?
If I remember correctly.
Yeah. That match fucking ruled, man. God, that match was good.
It really was. It's worth mentioning too, the one, I don't know what pay it was, Oracle, you'll probably know, or Bob, but the recent triple threat match with Bianca and Becky that Asuka had.
Yeah, Hell in a Cell.
Excellent. Hell in a Cell, that was excellent.
Great, yeah.
That was great, yes.
There's a lot of stuff. Like, I actually think when we did it for Act 2 that Alex nailed it. It's like, if she's on the show, just watch her. Like, she's so compelling. She's so fun. Her energy, she's so consistent and reliable. Like, you can't really go wrong with Asuka, right? It is what it is.
And her limping out to the ring last night at the end.
Awesome.
her entire WWE run, she does not have a single famously bad match, and I think that's not exclusive to women. There's not many people that are on the roster right now that you can't just be like, oh, remember when they had this real fucking stinker with her? It's just like, even if like what's going on in the ring isn't good, you're gonna find yourself somewhat entertained because she's just so captivating and charismatic.
She, of course, featured in Dave Meltzer's 4-star All Japan Pro Wrestling Love Letter Trios match from Clash at the Castle, which we all definitely thought was that good and didn't just pretend. Great match. Great match.
4 is in the one that comes after 3 and before 5.
Oh yeah, 4 stars.
And he needed to double his meds.
Let me tell you something. I'm happy to pretend it was good if Dave wants to. All right.
What's that? What is it?
You know I like the match for the Clash Trios. That was like a good match that Dave just gave 4 stars.
Oh, that one. Yeah.
I will say too, just fun little factoid to take us out on. Asuka only has in her whole run, I think 5 figures, and one of them is like a horror style variant. Because her gear is so colorful and requires so much paint that they're more expensive to make than everyone else's figures. So like she had this one that was announced and looked awesome. It was an elite, and they just figured out like there's no way we could make money on this. We're gonna lose money on all these that we sell.
Oh my god!
So
no wonder they make so many Randy Ortons.
Yeah, and like John Cena, even though like his T-shirts, those figures only involve like 3 colors, and with Asuka, it's always a bit different. So if you're ever wondering, if you find yourself awake at night wondering why the fuck isn't there an Asuka Kyrie 2-pack,
brother, you say that in jest. I spent a night wondering why there wasn't more Fit Finley figures. I mean, that seems like something exactly what I would wonder.
Dude, and he came from the Jax era where everyone was getting 3 or 4 figures, man.
He has them.
Like
to be fair,
like the little shillelagh.
I should be respectful of Jax. He got a lot with Jax. He did. But so Mattel, they made one at the very start, and they gave him. You remember the jacket he would wear in WCW? The really cool like one arm fucking thing.
Fucking cyberpunk shit.
Yeah. They gave him that with like modern Finley, and they've never made another figure. It's like, brother, you've made the deal. Make the fucking mullet Finley. You know?
Dude, yeah, the uncensored 96 Regal Finley 2-pack is what we need from Mattel.
Factual. There you go, folks.
All with fake blood put on Regal's nose after it gets broken.
Yeah.
Finley,
that
like
punch, that fucking punch, man. Oh my god.
In an industry of despicable human beings, I don't know if anyone's ever looked more sleazy in wrestling than Finley did on that night. Yeah. He had the wet mullet and then the fucking pencil mustache.
By the way, I don't know what birthday month he would be a great episode. He's awesome. Oracle and I were talking about him a lot on the grid recently. That'd be a really fun episode, you know?
We'd have to start with one of the matches where he tagged with Daddy. That would be the fucking best.
100%. This match fucking rules. The JBL match is a hoop. All right. Let's put a bow on this. We've been here for 2 hours and 20 minutes. A few slight misdirections there along the way. We had our moments. Here's what it is.
It's our first female. We would have looked like assholes if we blitzed through it.
Factual. That's what I said to Bob when he wanted to. Never mind. Let's put a bow on this. Bob, Asuka is obviously still active. She's still central. She was in the closing angle of Raw last night, for goodness sakes. But best you can, put a bow on your thoughts on Asuka, your fandom, your conclusion on her legacy. However you want to present it, your final thoughts on Asuka.
Yeah, she rules, man. I don't know that she necessarily gets the credit she deserves for the WWE Women's Division stuff the past, 5 years or so. Everyone obviously mentions the 4 horsewomen, and then it's like Asuka and Alexa come next, but she's in that conversation with, honestly, almost everyone except for Bayley and Sasha. I think she has a case for being, I know Becky's been big the past couple of years, but, Asuka's been a bigger deal than Charlotte, so it's and it's cool to see her still doing this. I know she's not, as built up as she used to be, but she is someone where, if they put her in a title match for the next pay-per-view, it would be believable and you'd think she could win. And I think that's pretty important too, despite all the stuff, that we talked about, the missteps on the main roster and stuff. She is still a big deal.
Bro, I've talked to you about this before, and I know it's going to end soon because you're going to do a turn or something. But, that's kind of how wrestling should work. People should move up and down.
Mm-hmm.
And I will go to the grave. I know they're going to split them up. Asuka and Alexa just being like the babyface team of people who've just been around for a long time, and you don't need to worry about pushing them because people just fucking like them.
Yeah.
Is the kind of shit I think WWE should actually do more of rather than trying to give everyone a character makeover and repackage it. Like, fuck that, man. Just let people cheer some of these people, like protect them enough, have them put some people over. I don't know. I think it's pretty fun. The Oracle of Wrestling. Final thoughts on Asuka. Oh my God.
Awesome wrestler. It's actually really impressive that she's still around and still as over as she is in that company.
Yeah.
Just shows you how good she is. Obviously, has had a great career in various places. Whether it's her initial run in Japan or NXT or the main roster. And I still think she probably has a couple of really good years left. She's been hit with the injury bug the last few years, which is unfortunate. But she's always stellar when she's healthy. So yeah, she rules.
Absolutely. I think that the Bob is right in terms of not getting enough credit. I also think from the Japanese wrestling perspective, like she's had such an incredible run for a Japanese wrestler in WWE. Like, and even with all the issues, it's been an incredible run. It's really.
That's one thing that we can't get too mad about because before her, that slot did not exist.
Right.
With her and Nakamura, it's like every Japanese talent up until that point, even if they were brought in with Taka Michinoku, this is gonna mean something. He still ended up indeed, doing that shit.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think she's genuinely one of the most, again, universally loved wrestlers in recent memory. She's incredibly versatile. She's dynamic. She's exciting. She's just a great pro wrestler, And I think I agree with you, Bob, totally about her part in the women's revolution. But I think it is sometimes important to be like, she's more than just like a great women's wrestler for WWE. Like, she has just been one of their best wrestlers since she got there. Like, she has been one of the most reliably entertaining people on their television show since the day she got there, whether she was an undefeated, unbeatable destroyer, or she was a comedy act holding a fucking doll while selling on Raw. She's just great. You don't get any better than Asuka. So she's tremendous. Alex, I'll let you have the last word on Asuka. Final thoughts, pal.
All right. So WrestleMania 34 now. It's what Asuka is she is this era's Rob Van Dam. And I mean that in the sense of she's over everywhere they go. She always has an entertaining match, and she's not someone you'll find like a pocket of haters for. You don't go to a town, random town like fucking St. Louis, for example, and people are booing her for some reason.
Right.
She is just someone that people like to see, and like RVD in the sense, he was pretty 50-50 in his wins and losses there towards the end, but people he's Rob Van Dam. Fuck yeah. And that's kind of like Asuka's fit into that RVD Sid mold of hell yeah. Wherever she is, the people get up to see her. I'd argue her matches have a bit more layers to them than Van Dam's or Sid's, being all praise be to Sid and Van Dam, but Asuka's obviously a bit more layered of a worker. And for me personally, with like how fucking jaded I am with wrestling at this point in my life, for her to come along and like be someone that I had no like real prior knowledge of and no prior investment in, and become like someone who for a while I treated as like appointment television or just really infatuated with their work. I think, for whatever little my opinion means, that's what I want to stress about it. That's how much she connects and how good she is at what she does. And I think she's becoming, I don't know, who was the litmus test for a while, but basically she's becoming who they just throw someone in with, see what they can do. They don't think someone can deliver, they throw in them with her. And yeah, great stuff. A career, especially in WWE, for what we've talked about here. Like I said, you're not going to find a bad match with her. and someone who had an aura at one point in time and
Mm-hmm.
was literally unlike anything else we had seen in WWE up until that point, and it was
Yeah.
really fun to live through her heyday.
Absolutely. Okay, folks. This was the September Grin Grappler. We were a little bit, we went into because last time we were late. You know the deal. It's fine.
Mhm.
It's now time for the October Grin Grappler, but there is a slight twist. I'm going to read a bunch of names that qualify for this month, and then I'm going to add an extra thing here. Okay. Yokozuna, Eddie Guerrero,
Oh, God.
Dusty Rhodes, Scott Hall, the aforementioned Adam Edge, and Phil Pepsi, CM Punk. Now, they're all really exciting, but I would like to suggest a potential outlier for the program. I know how you guys feel about this. We can actually talk it through as we go here. I do think there may be something to be said for doing a Noki this month, It breaks our general rule, but if ever there was a wrestler on a program where we look in kind of a historical lens and we go big picture to do that for, I kind of feel like Inoki's that wrestler, but I'm open to ideas. Oracle, where do you stand on this? Would you like to pick one of the wrestlers of the month, or should we do a special for Antonio Inoki?
We can do Inoki for sure. The only difficulty with Inoki is that my favorite matches of his, this is just a personal thing, are like not really accessible through easy means. And they also involve like 20 other people and are like 90 minutes long, and I cannot imagine making Contrarian Alex watch a 90-minute match. So
Well, I mean, I'm sure we could find 6 matches and then kind of, you could do a post-mortem with the
yeah.
that.
I mean, like but I mean, yeah, we can definitely do that. I'm for it because I've always been a fan,
Right.
just in general, like his his charm and his aura. Some of his matches are not. I've never been a huge fan of Inoki's in-ring work.
Right.
I actually preferred Baba in terms of the two legends. In terms, I mean, like 70s Baba specifically.
Caught me off guard. That's pretty wild.
Later Baba, no, I mean, Inoki's better, but he has some incredible matches, though. I mean, that it is true. It's just, I don't know.
What do you think,
But
Alex?
yeah,
Where do you stand?
I actually am very interested in doing it.
I think number one, it's probably the only real time the 4 of us together would discuss doing a show on Antonio Inoki, and my thought would be that'd be great because such an interesting guy, and his career spanned so many different things, generations, and someone said like he's one of the only people that you can genuinely say if he did not exist, the professional wrestling industry would be radically different than it is right now.
Right.
And so that'd be really cool for the 4 of us to discuss. I really like that list you had. So my personal idea would be freezing that list, doing Inoki, and then bringing that list back up at the end of the Inoki episode to pick from that.
I'm for that. I'm not against that.
Yeah.
I also,
I'm for it.
and Bobby, I don't know where you stand on this, but I also think there may be something to be said for if we explore the Inoki match catalog. Maybe there's something to be said for doing a sort of mini where we talk more broadly about Inoki, the kind of wrestling presence, rather than worrying so much about the matches themselves. Because I think in some ways the traditional format is maybe too rigid for Inoki because he's such a sort of unique personality.
I mean, yeah, I mean, there's so much to talk about him because it's just like, I mean, just the sort of spectacle matches that he sort of introduced to wrestling, like wrestling fucking Saito on an island, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like
fought Muhammad Ali in
yeah,
a work that turned into a shoot.
Right.
Yeah.
So like maybe we should kind of explore. We'll pencil it in as Inoki and we'll explore what that looks like. Right. That makes sense. And then if we settle on Inoki, we could always do, as Alex said, we can go back to that list afterwards for sure.
Yeah, they built a whole thing with he and Maeda, and Maeda hated his guts so much he refused to face Inoki.
We can find some some pillars. We can do like the IWGP finale with him and Hogan, and then he wrestled Regal on WCW. We can find some
the
oddball
Vader.
shit
I
to
think the
watch.
Vader squash for Vader debuts on online, right?
Yeah,
3 minutes and a riot afterwards.
the match later on in '96 is fucking awesome.
Oh
man.
yeah, it's incredible.
Old man Inoki match. Well, what are you saying? You in on this Inoki idea?
Yeah, I think it's good. And, I haven't really seen anything from him, so it'll be interesting in that front, too.
While we're planning and plotting on the air, lads, in fear of being too forward, where are you fellas in this time slot next Tuesday? The old 8 p.m. Eastern. Anyone got anything on their schedule? Where do we stand on this? I'm intrigued because I do have something that we could do, just as on a special occasion. Oh, we're having fun here in spooky month. Alex, are you free for this next Tuesday, perhaps?
Yeah.
Oracle, you got a free slot next Tuesday? The saying that we locked in a while back that I think it'd be good to give a date to.
I think I can be here.
Bobby, I know you're very busy. All right, next Tuesday. Now, your Noki episode we will get to probably at the end of the month, just so we speak, because when we're watching, next Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, same time as what you were here tonight, we're going to finally do it. We announced this many months ago. The all-time TNA Impact Wrestling Fantasy Draft. Anyone who ever worked for TNA, that version of them is available on the board. It will be us four being against each other. One of the more insane wrestling rosters in history. Everyone stopped through TNA at some point. Again, you're drafting that version of them, which certainly will be an interesting layer to the conversation. That will be next Tuesday, and then we'll be back at the end of the month for the Antonio Inoki episode, and we'll kind of be back on schedule.
I'm going to be tempted to take Roddy in the first round just so Joe doesn't have him.
Well, that's spiteful. But it is kind of like baby fat Roddy, so it's not as personal. If you took 2015 Rod,
beat down clan.
You're going to take Loki in round
one.
Loki,
that's right.
Pump my fist, yeah.
Joe, have you ever seen that match? It's a 4-way where like halfway through it, Shelly and Roddy get mad at each other and start hitting each other until Sanjay or someone's like, all right, come back over here now.
It's nuts how good Shelly still is, man. Like, Shelly's been around forever. You don't think about it that way.
He's an even better worker now.
Dude, I just assumed he was like an indie elder statesman, and when I watched Bola from this year, he fucking tears it up. I was like, how dare you still be this good, sir?
I think he's better than ever now. I think he's like cracked it completely. Like, he knows exactly the middle ground for him, Tremendous. I'm sure he'll be drafting next week. Bob, are you fired up for this TNA business?
I am, actually. It's going to be a lot of fun. I enjoy when we do drafts, and that's a really cool concept.
Speaking of such, this Thursday, the LNG annual draft gets underway. We are picking from the inferior male wrestlers on the Late Night Grin. LateNightGrin.com. Just $1 gets you in. Every Thursday, 9 Eastern. Oracle, how fired up are you to pick from TNA's incredible past here next Tuesday, pal?
I'm very excited. Goldilocks.
Fair.
Kaz when he was like
Jennifer Asuka.
Yeah, there you go.
So wait, do y'all do tag teams as one, or is it just individual picks?
I think we do individual here. I mean, we can, we can negotiate, but
because people forget the incredible tag team of Abyss and Alex Shelley. That was the baby bear, because Goldilocks was their manager.
Yeah, I think all time we'll go individual just because the amount of dynamics that Russo threw together.
What was it?
Good Lord.
Red Shirt Security or whatever it was.
Who's that?
Was it Kevin Northcutt or whatever his name was? What was his name?
I remember. I don't remember. They were just two big fat guys they called Phi Delta Slam.
Yeah,
were a fraternity tag team.
God, there's so many wrestlers on the board.
Doctor, brother. My number one overall right there.
Dude, TNA,
we should end up with good rosters. Yeah, it's going to be nuts, right? We should end up with good rosters in some shape or form. Because I saw when Ring of Honor did this for their own 20 years, they did this for their roster. It was like Bobby Cruz, Ian Riccaboni, Caprice was someone else, I forget. And their roster was fuck. It was crazy seeing it like that, TNA's is like that, but with a comedic twist, because there's also a bunch of old fucks that are going to be picked, and Bob's going to take Scott Steiner first. These are the games we play, folks. It's going to be a hell of a time. That is next Tuesday. Before that, let me stress again, tomorrow, we're going to do Dynamite coverage. It's the anniversary show, I'm told. We're going to go on the assumption it's going to make the air. There are rumors they're going to close the promotion. So we're going to assume it's making it. We're going to cover it tomorrow night, myself and probably Young Manny here on Twitch. So that's be pre-show and post-show for Dynamite. If the show's bad, I'll simply go to sleep. That is what I do now. Please respect my decision. Thursday.
If they do go down, Tony Khan has to start the show by saying he's vacated the time slot.
Fair. Thursday, the Late Night Grin, 9 Eastern. The annual LNG draft. We're picking male wrestlers this week. Last week, I think Bobby won or Shoot won, I forget. The Oracle of Wrestling had one of the more extraordinary performances in the history of podcasting. And he took Sheamus second, I believe, which has aged well. So that is this Thursday. Friday, 6 Eastern, 6:05. Bob O'Neill, which is Halloween. The original, 78. A classic. Bob's going to watch it for the very first time this Friday. Then Sunday, there'll be a Halloween Havoc watching of some kind because it's fucking spooky season. Isn't it, Bob? What is it, Bob?
It is spooky season.
Tremendous. Okay. Alex, please promote the Contrarians before we go here. Go ahead.
Yeah, we are thecontrarians.com, at Contrarian Prime on Twitter, at Contrarian Prime Instagram, facebook.com/Contrarian Prime. Film podcast with me and my friend Julio for Spooky Month. I plugged this last time, but we finished it. We got the mashup of the original Psycho versus the 98 remake. We just had Wake and Fright, the 71 Australian thriller drop, and interweaving that with the Twilight franchise, which has been taxing, but interesting nonetheless. So check it out. As always, thank you all for having me on and let me plug my shit.
Absolutely a pleasure. Bobby, anything to promote? Any political views you'd like to share?
No, just watch a Late Night Grin on Thursday. We're starting the draft. Draft season around here gets very intense, and fired up for it.
Absolutely. Oracle, anything to promote? Any final words?
No, I'll be around. I'm not sure I can outdo my performance last year, but I'll always give it the old college try. We'll see.
Got to pick 5 and was like, well, I'm fucked. No good wrestlers left.
Yeah.
All-time great stuff. All right, folks. This has been somewhat of a marathon edition, but we've had a blast. I hope you've enjoyed it too. And we'll see you tomorrow for some Dynamite talk. In the meantime, enjoy this outro. Wow.